so we're gonna head right into, and I apologize for the delay, licenses, permits, and events, and the first one is Holly Hill Farm. Is there anybody here from Holly Hill Farm? Okay. Holly Hill Farm is seeking a one-day liquor license. I think this was a date change. So, we granted it previously for September 22nd, and they're looking to change that, license to November 3rd, from 6 to 10 p.m.
I make a motion
Yep.
Second.
said, change the date.
Do we need another, we're gonna need another one? Great, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one is Social Arts Center. I see Patrice, come on up. So you may just tell us what you would like.
Sure. Social Arts Center is requesting a one-day liquor license for a fundraiser called ROHO, Make the Town Red. It is a celebration of street art. We have an exhibition right now that's all about street art, and you've probably seen the mural on the front of our building. So we're hoping to extend that celebration of street art to a fundraiser that will be down the street at 365 North Main Street, the home of Andre Williams. And that's the former site of the electric and power company. So we do have liability insurance, and we have state certified caterer / bartender who would be providing the liquor. So we're just looking to get the license in the town.
Patrice, do you have any concerns about parking, or is there?
We have talked about that. She has parking in her driveway. She has a pretty big lot, and then she's had open houses before. She's done part of open studios. People have parked on North Main Street, and it's never been an issue. But we can certainly look into getting,
Just something to be sensitive to.
Yeah.
Knowing, with the neighbors.
Patrice, what do you expect for attendance?
about 100.
You may want to talk to the chief about that. This is the Halloween party, right?
Yes, similar to that. Yeah, it's not actually. This one's a little bit different, but it's basically along that vein.
So they get a lot of people.
Yep.
It's a good party too.
Very good.
Is that close enough to the library parking lot?
No, it's
No.
down towards Robbins.
Way down towards Rockland Garage.
You can probably park some stuff on Robbins if you ask me.
There's a field. Is there parking in that field, like right around?
Oh, yeah, Wheelwright Park.
Wheelwright?
Yeah, Wheelwright, yeah.
That's not a bad idea. Keep in mind that ASP's got their pumpkin sale going on there.
But in the back,
Guys,
like
running
right on the
pumpkins
driveway.
used to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
No, they're parking there.
No, I know they're pumpkins.
I think you'll be all right. I think you should just
Be in touch with the
be in,
neighbors.
just pay
Andrea
attention.
has reached out to some.
And it's usually a lot of local
Yeah.
folks, so they know where they come together.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for the Social Arts Center for, October 26th from 7 to 11 p.m.? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Good luck with it.
Good
Thank
luck.
you very much. Hope to
Sounds
see
like
you guys
fun.
there.
Thanks for your patience tonight.
I do some work.
Nice, South Shore Community Center Halloween Fair and
Jingle Bell Walk.
Jingle Bell Walk. You're very smart to do that together. So, hello.
Hello, I'm Colin Orfizzi, Program Director of the South Shore Community Center. I'm also representing Ann Madden, our nursery school director, because she's having a great time in London this week. So what we're looking for is approval for the Halloween fair that we've been doing for at least 33 years. And the date is October 21st, 2018, held on the Common. And Ian asks that we are able to use your parking lot here for some of the vendors. She also asks that the $250 fee be waived. Is there anything else you need to know about the event? It's mainly for the 2 to 5 year old set, and it is open to the public.
And what kind of vendors are you?
I think it's just
anticipate?
known as ice cream truck. and probably more for the parent parking, because the parents actually, do the bake sale, so they just need some parking to just be able to unload this stuff onto the common.
And, just thinking, this is a Saturday?
No,
Or
Sunday, October 21st. And it's between 2 and 4.
Set up at noon.
Yes.
Is the request for the event. Any selectmen have any questions?
Is there anything else out on that day?
Not that I know of. Is there a motion to approve the South Shore Community Center Nursery School's annual Halloween fair for Sunday, October 21st from, they'll be on the common from 12 to 4 p.m. and to, waive the $250 event fee since they are a nonprofit?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 This is the easy stuff. All right, Paula, continue.
And now, the Jingle Bell Walk, it's our 24th year doing this.
Great.
And it's scheduled the day after Thanksgiving, November 23rd. Sandra arrives at the harbor, and crowds follow him up to the center. The only thing that we do around the common are the hay rides. Everything else takes place within the center. We have open bowling. It's a completely free day. It's a give back to the community. And we were hoping too that for this event that you would waive the $250 fee. This isn't a fundraiser.
Any questions from the selectmen?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the 24th annual Jingle Bell Walk on November 23rd, 2018 from 2 to 4 p.m. and waive the event fee?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for doing
much.
this, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And lastly is the rec department's Thanks for Giving road race. Is there anybody here from the rec department? Could make it. Okay. This, again, hang on, I'm just gonna try to bring it up on my computer. This is the Thanks for Giving 5K road race that starts here. The town hall goes 5K distance and brings them back to the town hall. This is for Thanksgiving Day, November 22nd. They set up at 5 a.m. The start time for the race is 7:30, and they're probably disappeared to put their turkeys in the oven by 9. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. All right. Next up, I'm gonna read a public hearing notice for, Nguyen's Kitchen. I hope I pronounced that correctly, or at least, close to. The Cohasset Board of Selectmen, acting as the liquor licensing authority, will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 9th, 2018 at 7:05 p.m. in the Selectmen's Office, Town Hall, 41 Highland Ave, to consider the application of Nguyen's Kitchen, 1 LLC DBA Nguyen's Kitchen, for a new annual on-premises all-alcohol restaurant license at 156 King Street, Cohasset, Mass. 02025. The proposed manager is Ms. Thu Han Nguyen. The licensed premises is approximately 2,400 square feet on the first floor with 2,000 square feet in the basement. There is 1 entrance and 2 exits. The public is invited to offer public input on this proposed in writing in advance of the public hearing or in person at the public hearing. And if I could ask the Nguyen's and whoever's representing them to come forward.
Okay, Madam Chair, so I'm,
Sorry?
you, come on,
Come on up.
Out of an abundance of caution, I didn't get a notice or anything, I'm not sure whether officially I really am in a butter or not, but just to be cautious, I think I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay, okay,
you
so
know-
for the record, Selectman,
Recuse himself.
what's his name? Selectman McCarthy is recusing himself.
The guy on the
We'll
end.
call you with the guy on the end there.
Just let me know, please.
Great, thank you.
What should we call you?
Yeah. Sorry. It's already a long night, it's only 7:30. Welcome. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us what your plans are.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Peter Pashuka. I'm an attorney. I'm representing Tu Nguyen and her brother, Con Nguyen. And they're in the process of opening up a restaurant at 156 King Street. It's going to be a Vietnamese Asian fusion restaurant called Nguyen's Kitchen. Tu and Con are accompanied today by their spouses, Kung Tron and Lam Nguyen. It's been Tu and Con's sort of lifelong dream to open up a restaurant. Tu resides in Quincy, and she's been working at Pho Lin, which is a Vietnamese restaurant in Quincy, And Con Nguyen also resides in Quincy, and he's a server and chef at Pho Bistro, which is also a Vietnamese restaurant in Malden. So they have a good amount of experience in the business, and they're really looking forward to this opportunity. They've been scouting locations, doing their homework, and they think that Cohasset's a good place to open up their first restaurant, and they really fell in love with the space at 156 King Street. It's move-in ready. The Blue Mussel Tavern wasn't there too long, but they've done a really nice job renovating the space, and the lease includes equipment as well as furniture, so it's really move-in ready. They don't have to put a lot of money into renovations and startup costs. They can use their money towards the menu and hiring staff. 2 is going to be the manager. She's going to be on site daily. Khan is going to be the chef. He's also going to be on site daily. He's going to be the assistant manager. There are approximately 124 seats in the restaurant. I think there are about 30 seats in the bar area. The proposed hours are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. They're really aiming for a family restaurant centered around food. They're hoping that the liquor license is going to be a good source of revenue, but to be blatantly honest, it's not their top priority. The food is going to be their top priority, and getting people to come in and dine at the restaurant. They're hoping to do some takeout business as well, but again, the goal is a dine-in restaurant. We filed a complete application. Jen has been very helpful in making sure we have everything that is needed for the application. We've also been in discussions with Pam Fahey on what needs to be done from a health perspective. So with that being said, I'll open it up to questions. 200 of other con.
Steve?
I'll come back, please.
Okay.
Excellent, welcome. I can't wait. I think it's a great location. It's had a lot of restaurants, as you know, in the past, but I think it's well needed.
Do you have a sense of when you might be open?
So we are like fix it a little bit. We want to renovate the kitchen to become our kitchen, right? So we hopefully we can open by December.
So you're gonna put wok stoves in there? You're gonna replace all the other stoves and put wok stoves in?
Yeah, we have to put like box stove. We have to put the stock pot range for the soup because we very famous for the soup, so we have to put like a lot of that to change the kitchen.
So is it pure Thai or French Thai or?
Vietnamese.
Okay, sorry, Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So, but it French Vietnamese or straight Vietnamese?
So we will focus on Vietnamese, but it would be like Asian fusion. So we kind of pick up what we think is good, and then we just, put it on the menu.
See what people like, right? Have either of you managed a liquor license before? Our this board's biggest concern is liquor regulations, because that is the thing that, first of all, we have authority over, and secondly, that's what we hear about from the community members, just in terms of managing alcohol in a restaurant. So I want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with our liquor regulations. There's a lot of things that we expect from people that have a restaurant business in town that's serving liquor, including just communicating with this office. If hours change or you realize that, we really don't get much business on a Monday, we don't want to be open on a Monday, we want to know that because our police officers and the enforcement people in town need to know what's going on where and when, especially when there's alcohol consumption involved. So if you don't have a copy of the liquor regulations already, I'll make sure that this office gets those to you, and that that's something that we're gonna, just expect a good communication relationship with you on.
Welcome, good luck. It's that particular location has been waiting for someone to focus on
good food that families would find interesting and enjoyable for a long, long time. A couple of things that I suggest is that remember that while you're in a business area, you abut a residential area on the site. So it's just be aware of it, that's it. With respect to the liquor license, Diane covered the notion that our expectations are for a license holder are very high, but they're easily met by way of communication, as Diane was pointing out. Keep in mind that it's a responsibility and privilege to hold a license, so managing it properly, including making certain that your servers are tip certified, not just the manager, that you hold regular trainings for safe alcohol distribution and so on. And I think we would very much enjoy having you as part of the community.
Anything? Okay. Let me just go back to get it in front of me. Is somebody would like to make a motion to approve the annual on-premises all alcohol restaurant license for Nguyen's Kitchen, LLC DBA Nguyen's Kitchen?
So,
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Good
Thank you.
luck.
Thank you
good luck
very
with the
much.
opening.
Right.
Good luck with the opening. Okay. Would you tell what's his name?
I don't think the guy on the end.
Diane has come back.
Sorry.
Good night.
Good night.
That's great. That's great. The last great restaurant was that time. And that closed just before he used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the folks that owned, they were in the north end. No.
They had a half a cupcake.
Ah, there you go.
Was it good?
Politos. They were good.
Is this what was just done? I don't sign up.
No, it's actually different.
Yeah.
What's this?
All right, hold on, I'm just gonna get my paperwork in front of me. Keep moving through the agenda. Okay. Next up, we have a public hearing, which is for a, renewal of license for, Sejon liquor license. I'm gonna read the letter and the notice that was sent. Having received a remand from the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission regarding the non-renewal of your 2016 license and being aware of other legal decisions, the Board of Selectmen, acting in its capacity as the local licensing authority for the town of Cohasset, will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 9th at 7:20 p.m. on whether your 2016 off-premises license renewal application should be approved or rejected and denied, and whether any license that may exist be modified, suspended, canceled, revoked, or declared forfeited under the provisions of Massachusetts general laws as a result of incomplete and inaccurate statements in the renewal application, failure to conduct business, failure to exercise the license, failure to have a suitable location to conduct the business, and non-compliance with the applicable alcohol licensing laws of the Commonwealth and the town of Cohasset. The meeting has been scheduled for Tuesday, October 9th, 2008 at 7:20 in the Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall, 41 Highland Ave, Cohasset, Mass. So I'm gonna open the hearing. I'm gonna introduce, our attorney, Jim Lamke, who's gonna kind of give us a little bit of where we are and why we're here. And please feel free to sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Should I swear in anyone?
Yeah, if you wanna swear in, it is a public hearing.
Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth and the whole truth? As Chairman indicated, this is a hearing on a renewal application. I understand that there was some discussion that you might be requesting a continuance.
Yes.
So perhaps we may want to address that right off the bat, but for the benefit of the public perhaps, if I could just explain that this matter was before the board a few years ago, and the board denied the renewal application and also denied a transfer application. The matter was appealed for the transfer application denial to the ABCC, which held a hearing, but determined that because the renewal was denied and the holder of the renewal did not appeal that the ABCC basically felt they didn't have a license to consider whether it should be transferred or not. So they denied it for that reason. That matter was then appealed to court, that decision from the ABCC. The town was not a party to the court case. Eventually, the court remanded the matter back to the ABCC for the ABCC to reconsider their action on the denial of the transfer application, which then implicated the denial of the renewal application. So the court remanded it back to the ABCC remanded it back to the town, basically suggesting that the town hold a hearing with notice for the renewal application. Depending on what that decision is, the ABCC may then open up the transfer denial hearing and take some action based on that if there is a license to transfer. In the meantime, based on information from the ABCC, the board approved granting essentially what was this license to another operator, and unfortunately the ABCC, because of this morass with the
It's being held up, yeah.
with the transfer and the renewal being issues, it's not taking any action on the on the application to the new holder of it until this is all resolved. So for the benefit, I say that just for the benefit of the public and people that are here, as well as TV audience who may wonder why is this back before the board.
So in summary, our responsibility in this hearing is to act on the renewal of
Yes.
this license.
Yes, that's what's before the board at this time. And I understand the gentleman wants to make some technical request, but I think you need to identify yourself first for the record, because the license is held by Sage and Enterprises LLC, but the manager of the license is Deborah Sage. Is she here?
No.
You can address the board.
Yes.
Hi.
This is Yogendra Sejan. I am partner, and it's my wife. She's holding that license. So she was sick, and I was requesting to postpone the date so that my lawyer was not available to come. He was out of station. So if you can grant me another date or whatever.
So, I just wanna make sure I'm clear, so the license is actually held by your wife.
Yeah,
So
me
was
and my
she
wife.
able to, I think she's
She's the
the
manager of record.
manager of record, so she would have to be here for that, I right? Because
Yes, well, yeah, you're not the manager of record.
But
And I don't know
partner in that
what
second-
your function, role is, in it. You are a manager under the LLC, but the license, when it was originally approved, was to your wife as the manager, for Sage and Enterprises LLC. So, she needs to be here because, or you, somehow you need to have some authority, here, you're not the manager of record. So, just so
May I ask,
I can-
where is the license holder? Why is she not here?
She is at home. She is not well, so I requested to her for that extend that date. So that's why I so if you want, I can get her over here within another 15 minutes. It's not far.
So she's ill and was unable to be here tonight. I think it's important that she be here because by law, we don't have the ability to, hold a real hearing without the whole license holder being here or a person making the application for the license. And then you also mentioned that you were looking for legal representation.
Yeah, he is out of station.
Okay.
That's
Say
So-
out of what?
out of station. He's not in
Out of station, I mean out of the country or out of the state?
out of the state.
Out of the state, okay.
So, you've hired an attorney to represent you in this, is that correct?
If, would you be willing to disclose who you hired? You could copy them on any correspondence.
Your attorney's name, so that we can make sure that he or she is aware of what our requirements would be for another hearing. In other words, we would send a hearing notice to your attorney as well, if we determine that we're gonna continue this hearing. We need somebody to communicate with, the license holder and your attorney.
You can communicate with my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's your attorney?
That's Richard. Richard.
I'm sorry.
Jimmy Richard.
Do you have a card or some?
No, I don't.
Can you write down his name and telephone number?
God,
So, I
I think legally we need to get our counsel to advise us as to the fact that we have a hearing and the person who had, the license holder's not here, so
Correct.
what are our options?
yep,
To, where is his office, in what town?
in Braintree.
In Braintree. Sage advises that his attorney's name is Gene Richard Braintree.
okay,
In reference to Selectman McCarthy's point, the license representative is the manager, and they should be here, but even if that person was here, I imagine they would be making the same request to reschedule this matter because their attorney is not available this evening. Would have been good if we had known that ahead of time, we could have saved a lot of time.
Yeah, actually I called, it was too late to call. I called morning.
Yeah. Okay. So my recommendation is that the board reschedule, continue this hearing, you've opened the hearing, continue this hearing to a reasonable time period, so that the attorney and Mrs. Sage, who's the manager of record, can be there.
can I just, kind of put a fine point on that,
Sure.
which is that the manager of record is Mrs. Sajan, so
Correct.
we really should be dealing with her or her formally assigned representative, which could be an
Right.
attorney or presumably, does she have to physically be here?
Well, she's the manager of record. If the board has questions about the operation, whether they have a new location, why hasn't something been done about it? So she's the one that you should be, in my opinion, dealing with. Mr. Sajan can certainly be here and participate in it, but I believe even the ABCC raised it as a question that Mrs. Sajan is the manager of record, yet Mr. Sajan seems to be the one doing everything, which suggests that he has some involvement in the license that may not be disclosed as properly and fully.
Okay. All right, any questions on the board?
At the
Board?
moment, it doesn't seem like we can proceed.
Right. So, before you make the motion, can we sort of amongst ourselves consider what we would be comfortable with in terms of a date certain for the continuance?
Do you, Mr. Sajan, do you have an understanding of your attorney's schedule over the next several weeks?
Yeah, he's going to be here next week, so you can schedule any day whenever you want. You can. It's up to you.
So we're meeting on the 23rd? Do you wanna tack it on to an already scheduled selectmen's meeting? We need to check with our attorney.
You can give any date, whatever is suitable for you.
Also, we would be re-noticing it in additional notice, we would want to give 14 days notice.
Do we have to renotice it, or is it a continuation?
It's a continuation, but there's an additional issues regarding money owed to the town that necessitates having an additional notice. That's going to be an issue. We need 14 days notice for that.
is.
Okay,
So what's the first November?
the first November date is the election day, right? November sixth?
Okay.
No, your first meeting is the 13th.
Our first, right. So,
We
our
can- I
first
mean-
meeting's the 13th?
We could, I mean, if schedules allow, we could knock this off in a different date.
You could do it a different day.
That's what I'm thinking.
The state strongly encourages people not to have meetings on election day.
Right.
You can if you absolutely.
We don't need to do that, but is there another day of the week that would
Can
work
you do
for
the
anybody
30th?
that week?
The Wednesday,
Can you do the 30th?
Wednesday the seventh?
Well, if we're gonna do this the
Seventh.
7th, why don't we just wait another few days and do the 13th so we don't set up another meeting?
Yeah.
Because the days when we're setting up all these meetings,
Is there an
it's-
I know.
it's disruptive to the staff too, and
Yeah, yeah.
Chris and, you
Yeah.
know.
The only benefit of it the 7th is that if there's any last minute warrant changes you want to make, that's the last possibility. Go with the 7th. So if you have the 7th, if there's anything at the last minute, I'm not suggesting it's not anything, that'll be a last shot at fixing, changing anything. So there is a bit. I appreciate your sentiments. I'm just saying that would, the 13th would be really too late for us to do anything.
Here's my thinking on it, Kevin, I address you directly, because I don't wanna get together any more than we have to either. However, you know from your own experience with this particular, circumstance, that it could get 9 KM over TTV. And as a result, it may take on more time commitment than the board may have anticipated, disrupting other things that we have to do on the 13th. And so that was my thinking.
Wednesday, November seventh. Jim, does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay, so do you wanna
So
make
I-
a motion?
So make a motion,
There'll be 2 agenda items, an open warrant and
The
the hearing.
any last minute warrant updates and the hearing will be the
Make a
only.
motion to continue this hearing until November 7th at 7:10 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
With
Okay, so we've
apologies.
scheduled it for Wednesday, November seventh. We will again notice it, we will send it out to Mrs. Sajan and also your attorney. Okay? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, is that all we need to wrap this up?
Yes.
Okay.
They want just vote the record to continue to that date, or?
We just did.
You just, okay. I was checking my calendar.
Taking your
It
notes
didn't
and
hit my calendar, so.
We're just moving right along.
I made a motion.
Paul made the motion. Okay, the next thing we have on our agenda is to sign the November sixth state election warrant.
Do you have,
You have the
notice?
information.
Yeah, Carol wanted to ask if you could read that as well.
Okay. Okay, so, we are gonna sign, the election warrant, which we do, and I'm also going to, provide information on early voting in Cohasset for the November sixth state election. Early voting will be conducted at Cohasset Town Hall, located at 41 Highland Ave, from October 22nd through November 2nd during the following times: Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:30 to 4:30; Tuesday, 8:30 to 7 p.m., Fridays, 8:30 to 1 p.m., and Saturday, October 27th, that's the only Saturday in here, from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. The last date for early voting is November 2nd, obviously, because the staff needs time to prepare for the November 6th election. And then the warrant for the election. Do you have to read it aloud? Do I have to read that aloud too? Yep. Okay. I read fast. All right, it's a lot.
Must you?
Is it 3 pages?
Yeah, I think it's-
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I gotta read this thing?
It's good.
I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
No,
We'll scan it. Just text it out there.
this is what everybody's getting in the mailbox.
It just says sign. Carol wants
It
to
just
get
says sign, so basically what we're signing is what is gonna be in the ballot box. It is, that, the election is gonna be on Tuesday, the 6th of November, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We will be choosing a senator in Congress, governor and lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, treasurer, auditor, representatives in Congress, counselor, senator in general court, representative in general court, district attorney, clerk of courts, registered deeds, county commissioners, and county treasurers. There are 2 believe, 3, questions. One is a law pros, I'm not gonna go into that. There's question 1, question 2, and question 3. You will get this in your mailbox, so you can read about the various articles. So, is there a motion to approve the warrant for the state election?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're gonna sign it, okay? We're just making sure we're clear. All right.
So look on the website for the early vote.
Yeah, those early voting hours, great. And there is one Saturday, that's good. Next up is budget update. So Don Piat is here, and Chris, and they're gonna tell us where we are in the middle of fiscal 19.
Well, actually, this is Don's first year end for us.
Oh,
So, to his credit, Don.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Did a lot, looked at everything, literally everything. Which meant, it took some time. So the good news is that he took everything. So first let me congratulate Don on closing out the year.
Congratulations.
As you saw, it's from I sent in a memo earlier. Do you need a copy of it? So on all, the charts, the copy, the year ended well. Still polishing exactly what the free cash number is exactly, but it's in our range of 3 to 4% of operating budget. I'd love to have Don just explain what he went through and where we are.
Sure, so all 3 of our operating budgets, essentially general fund, water, and sewer, all ended up with either year-end revenue surpluses or expenditure turnbacks. The most significant being in the general fund, with revenue surpluses being about $944,000 and expenditure turnbacks of $587,000. So the biggest part of the revenue surpluses, probably 3 major factors. The biggest being tax title or tax deferrals being collected, which are from prior year tax that weren't paid, lien, and then collected. So it's really an unbudgeted revenue anytime we get that money in, which essentially just falls to free cash.
Kind of an anomaly.
Yeah. The next piece,
How much was that, did you say?
about $300,000. Motor vehicle is probably the largest, with about $434,000 surplus. And then license and permits was also one of our larger revenue surplus as well. And then,
So Don, when you say surplus, you saying surplus above the budget, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
yep. And then on the expenditure side, the major surplus or turn back would be in the health insurance, which was about $115,000 turn back.
Why?
We've
We
been
got better
budgeting.
rates.
Did I get?
We got better rates than what we budgeted for, is that right?
Better rates, and I think definitely with the look back on what our prior experience was, ended up giving us better results. I think we did budgeted conservatively for the health insurance as well, which would have helped that.
What was the variance on the line item, health insurance line item versus the surplus? 2%, is it 1%?
Let's see, it's small.
I'm sorry, Don, I just didn't know if you had it off the top of your head.
Uh,
What's our budget line item?
$3 million, is that right?
Okay.
I'm probably,
Health insurance is about $5.2 million.
okay, it's either one. So it's a very small.
Okay. All right.
So 97, 2%.
Okay. I'm sorry, 5.2 million, you said?
Yep.
And 150,000 was the outcome?
100, 115.
115.
115, yes.
Got it.
And then the schools also turned back about 57,000. And then
Third year in a row they've turned back money.
and then
source?
Yeah,
A source on that?
They didn't specify.
yeah, they didn't specify. The schools have the ability to move money around throughout the entire budget, so it's kind of hard to tell.
I mean, some of that is the circuit breaker money that is now available in the reserve fund, so there's less concern with holding on to the money that's surplus to place into prepayment and circuit breaker money.
Okay.
So that's the biggest, what we found that's currently available in the schools, it's not available up until last year.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Don, that number coming back from the school budget was what?
57,000. small on a $18 million budget,
Yeah.
but, you know, in my experience, a lot of schools don't turn back any money.
Well, that's, exactly, it's you know, it would be, if we could see a consistent desire to do that regardless of its magnitude, it would be pretty interesting. Yeah, 2.2% by the way on healthcare is really, it's bucking the trend. So, I mean, it's a small number, but it's nice to see.
And then again, we've been committed to roll that and roll it up into, so all the savings roll back.
So your direction is to isolate that 115 and recommend that be directed to the OPEB trust fund.
Yeah, every year, we take whatever, if there's any positive remaining, and we, you know, we roll out to a bigger number.
Yeah, regardless of other funding that may go to OPEB.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And then really just, those are the two largest turnbacks, and then really it's just a matter of a bunch of departments throughout the budget turning back money, I guess, until 587. And in the budget book, I believe we do a schedule of turnbacks, which, once we start doing the budget book for 20, we'll have that in there.
These are not yet certified, right?
No.
What does that mean?
State certified.
DOR.
DOR hasn't yet to bless these numbers.
So, when I say turnbacks, that
No,
is...
no, I'm talking about the balance mill.
The closeout from.
He's trying to figure out if you,
Are we closed out at 1.5 million deposit? That's the question.
Not completely. So,
Okay.
undesignated fund balance may have about that in there. Now, when you do free cash, you have to net out receivables, any deficits or receivables in other funds as well.
So
So it may not be that number. That's why we're still looking
No,
at.
that's why I'm asking. We're not there yet.
Not certified.
So you're not ready to declare a number.
No, Don's meeting with we have a brand new DOR representative.
He's
You're meeting with him in a week or two.
October 23rd, he'll be coming in and actually doing the free cash certification on site with me. So we should actually have a good idea.
When
on
does
this
that
one.
get like officially blessed?
He
Because
basically has the number at that point, and he may have one or two questions at that point that he may have to go back, or his supervisor may do his final review and say, what is this? And then he'll just have to come back to me, but otherwise, he's 99% done once he leaves our office.
that's the 23rd. We have a meeting on the 23rd, so
Well,
I guess the next question is.
We're gonna talk about projections already. So Don and I have already talked about numbers that we feel safe with.
For special town meeting,
Correct.
yeah.
And we always like to leave a little in the bank anyway for the spring. So,
so Don, how did the closing in general go mechanically, you know, the process itself?
Mechanically, it went well. It's just my first year, usually soft right. I think it ended up being a great system. It's just a matter of having to learn it and doing it myself instead of kind of having them come in and show me. But I think during this whole process, I've learned way more than I probably could have than even having software come in. So mechanically, it went great. I think next year will be even better. The closeout at the end of the year, the reconciling, turning over into next fiscal year, I think will go way smoother. And we wouldn't be in the beginning of October looking at prior year reports.
Great.
Two quick questions, Tom. I missed the excise numbers above what it was. You said it was.
motor vehicle?
Yeah, what it
What-
was.
over budget.
Over budget, it was 434.
It's only 1.1% over actuals for most years.
So it's-
It flattened out.
Okay, so 1.1%.
Which is again an area that I noticed, but it's a
I mean,
bears
statewide-
watching because
yeah,
it's.
statewide, the motor vehicle sales are about that, a little higher. The other question I have is, well, were there anything that you saw after going through the year? Is there any changes you needed us to help you do or facilitate next year's process?
No, I don't think so. I think it went as smooth as it could have.
If it comes up, let us know, because sometimes there's something we need to,
Sure, I appreciate that.
to make sure it gets done faster or smoother. Certainly certification of the free cash or the undesignated fund balance is always what we're looking for to get it certified as soon as possible, so.
And again, I think last year it was certified at the beginning of September-ish, somewhere around there. So yeah, we're a month behind. Next year, I would expect to be back on our normal schedule of.
Yeah, but
of
Mary was like,
Late on.
She was at,
she
she was
was already in Situate and
Yeah,
one
yeah,
foot
yeah.
dipping in the
She was
Cohasset.
in Florida,
and
she was
you're-
in
yeah.
Florida.
It's not lost on us, the amount of work that it takes to
No, she
start a new fiscal year, close out the previous, and
she left me
literally,
with a great map, that's
so,
for sure.
excellent, thank you, good work.
And then just, I'll touch on the water and sewer departments real quick, and then kind of take any other questions you may have. Water department, end of the year in pretty good shape. $361,000 of budgetary surplus is in the expenditures. Part of that is due to conservative budgeting, for sure. The other part is some deferred projects that didn't end up happening during FY18. Some of that was encumbered and carried over. Some of it, just because of the timing, not having a fully executed contract in place, it's a surplus, and we'll end up going to retained earnings that they may have to tackle to finish these projects that they're going to do.
The biggest one being the Ad River Reservoir Dam, which is gonna be on the line to pull money to finish this.
And then the revenue surplus, they were in at about 130,000, much lower than prior year surplus, and really that is due to a significant decrease in the water usage. To the tune of about 428,000 cubic feet.
What's that as a percentage?
That closed, but this is closed out as of last year, so that we had a much drier, hotter summer, so this year it's up. It was still over budget.
Yeah, because we were, we
The
get
year
This
before,
goes back to the spring,
right,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So the water use has been up actually, I mean, if you see the 5 of the last 6 months, and it's the summer's really where it's picked up, so that's gonna show up in this year's.
Okay.
And then sewer department, they were a little tighter. They were still in the black, but they only turned back $8,000 in their expenditure lines. On the other side,
$8,000 in retained earnings?
No, $8,000 in expenses.
Oh, in expenses, got it.
No, the retainers.
Okay.
so I know probably a little different terminology maybe sometimes
Yeah, no,
than others maybe. Then on the revenue side of things, they were in good shape. They had about $450,000 in surplus revenue. Most of that is due to, it's kind of split in thirds, I guess. About $140,000 with surpluses and connection fees. I don't know off the top of my head what their actual budget was for it, but $140,000 is pretty good. That's a good surplus for them. $161,000 surplus in betterment revenue, and another $133 in usage receipts.
Where their rates went up last year, so.
Right.
You should have seen that. But the betterment stuff needs to roll into a betterment reserve fund that the state pays.
The connection fee.
This is the first year where they're taking those betterments and putting them into a segregated account, is that true?
No, Mary had said something on that years ago.
Did she, but I don't know if we were fully activated.
So that is something that through reconciliation process, I've learned way more about our betterments and how everything's tracked and working out. So that is going to be a project I look into very shortly to make sure that during our 2020 budget that we're in line with what we need to be doing for budgeting for our betterments, making sure that we have the reserves that we need for any future debt service that we have to pay off for anybody that has already prepaid. That's where we really can get caught up is that revenue coming in not being segregated and
Right.
taken out of undesignated retained earnings. And put
Capital
being put in
Budget
the
Committee's
budget.
been after that for 10 years.
At the risk of, I mean, Chris, this is exactly what town meeting meant by joint management, was to make sure that you and the finance director looked at these things.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, so thank you.
And there's, oh, sorry.
One quick question. I know it's your first year here, but you've had experience in other towns. Oftentimes there's some unforeseen both revenues or expenses that show up. Was there anything this year that you saw that was unusual expense or unusual revenue that came in? Tip things one way or the other?
No, I mean, not off the top of my head. Everything was kind of in line. I mean, I was a little surprised with the amount of tax title and deferrals, but that's just a good job of Paul and her staff collecting on those.
Like, I think last year there was $1 million.
2 years
2 years ago.
We had a couple of very large deferrals that we picked up 2 years ago. So that there's always 5 to 10 properties that are sitting in that deferral process, and
And some of those are elderly people that have been put
They're all
on.
elderly people, and some of those properties are very valuable, and the interest rate is very high. So, the town really does make out on that. So when the properties are eventually sold, it's actually quite a nice.
Guess who's first paid?
Yeah.
The town is first paid.
Senior and
And
So
is
Dawn,
the interest, is the interest rate, I'm sorry, based on the value of the property?
No,
or
it's
just
a
fixed
statutory
thing,
fixed
statutory
rate,
thing?
and
That's
I
what
forget
thought.
what it is, and
It's like 16 or something, it's a
No,
lot.
it's not, I don't think it's
No?
that high, but it's higher than inflation by far, so,
Sorry.
used to be.
So Don, when we do, every year for the last 10 years, we've always talked about how those revenues get booked in the sewer department. Are we gonna break that out again this year and just go at it one more time so everybody, I think a lot of folks don't understand what was going on there, and it'd be nice to get some clarity around that.
With the betterments and stuff like that?
Yeah,
or-
with how the betterments got spent and how they got allocated in the accounts.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Whatever needs to be done to make sure everybody's on the same page and understanding how
great.
this is working. Again, this is a learning curve for me, trying to pick up where somebody left off and not really, that was one roadmap I didn't really have, and I just kind of figured it out over the last few months. But, I know that at least this last year, the revenue that had been brought in for betterments exceeded what we paid in debt service payments. So at least I know for this year that we're going to be tracking that excess into our reserve appropriation. Reserve, it's not a receipts reserve, but retained earning reserve for better.
That's great.
Yep.
That's the way to do it.
Okay, so when we determine what the surplus is, when are we going to figure out how to allocate that?
I'm gonna make some recommendations to you tonight for consideration.
So we don't know the number though, but we're
Well,
gonna.
we have a, it's between 1 and 1.5 million. So I'm going on the conservative edge of that, knowing that we always like to keep some money in reserve for the spring if
So
it's
we might
bad
allocate,
winter.
for example, one and keep
Yeah,
some of it.
and it's there in case
And
there's.
so we're gonna start to discuss tonight?
Correct.
How to allocate that, then maybe vote on it finally.
Yeah, so we're gonna start the conversation, I'm meeting with advisory on Thursday, so now we're gonna get their input starting on Thursday, and then we'll come back. I also have a couple of projects which we'll talk about tonight too, we plan a land purchase that
Sounds
we wanna make sure that we fund. So the good news is that, again, we're right on target, okay, the goal is, 3-4%, that's the best practice, we're hitting that number, folks did a good job, and we did have some, unexpected salary savings, we had some positions that lagged. Fortunately, they're full, as you saw the update from the other week. In fact, we gotta get a couple of new staff members in here. So we're staffed, which is good. But at this point, again, we gotta keep watching. The year's closed out really well. Oil prices are at a 4-year high. We gotta keep watching that. That's gonna have to put pressure on inflation and things. Did it drop today?
No. I was actually gonna ask a separate question. Oil dealers will typically hedge their inventory. Often they'll do it through the suppliers. But they in turn can move toward their customers and lock in a price, basically protecting them from an increasing rate if you commit earlier. Are we a big enough fuel supplier that we might be able to ask, or alternatively, does the state have some sort of program that would help us to protect against spikes? It's not that we're gonna get the fuel a lot less expensively, but from a budgeting standpoint, if we had the confidence of saying that we understand that our fuel price is no greater than X, then it would help us from a planning.
We do that for natural gas. We're in a consortium contract on natural gas and electricity. On fuel, I believe we buy off a state bid.
I believe we do.
So, in the sense that, we're buying off a state contract, so in the sense the state's already bid all this out, but we're buying into their,
But are you buying it?
stability, I guess, such as it is.
Is the state essentially passing along the pricing on their regular purchases, or are they trying to, as I noted, are they trying to hedge 6 months out?
The details of that, I'm not sure. I can ask Michelle to look into how they structure that. We're not a big enough player on our own to do anything.
No, that's fair, but if we can use the state to help us out, well, that much the better.
We do that when it's beneficial. We're trying to use a few more state contracts than we used to. We're doing that with vehicles, actually very successful this year. But we're in a school consortium, actually, believe it or not, electricity. Those are regional school consortiums.
We use mostly gas though, right? Do we have many?
But most of our, natural gas is, we're at pretty much a natural gas heat, and electric, and the solar rate's done a wonderful job, you see.
52,000 this year net credits.
And that's not even a full year.
That was only September through
Paul,
June.
you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned about the consortium, so the schools had a consortium for natural gas for a
Yeah,
long
we're in
time,
that.
and electricity as well.
And what I'm describing, just so it's clear to everybody, is motor fuels.
Yes,
I'm
right,
thinking
right.
only of motor fuels, cause it's
So
the most
I'm not sure that that's the case, but.
Yeah, we are buying up
we-
state.
we do
Let me find,
electricity.
I'll look into, well, we can find out more about that.
Typically it was a
Obviously.
3-year contract, looking forward, it tries to level the previous 3 years, gives a ballpark figure, ability to estimate what your expenses would be. You have the BTUs you burned a year, and figure out 3 years back, 3 years ahead.
Okay.
They're relatively accurate, except for 1 year where they.
Except for 1 year where
Well, 1 year is the renovation, they had to hit the credit rules.
So can we move to FY19, our first quarter results, kind of where we're at there?
So since I was busy wrapping up the 18 results, I will formally get these reports in a similar fashion out of 9:30 over the next week or so to you guys.
Okay,
And then come back to one of the next meetings
fair enough.
to do a little more in-depth. But going through the first quarter preliminarily, there's some first quarter adjustments to do. Nothing out of the ordinary. Expenditures are right on target, it seems like, in all departments. Went through some of the revenues, and first quarter we've already collected 137,000 of tax liens and deferrals. Again, Paula having a good time
Selling
selling
those
those properties and collecting on the principal and interest owed. Up another 40,000 from last Q1 for penalties and interest, mostly because of tax liens. So really it's almost about 180,000 from tax liens already in the first quarter.
Those are generally collected when a property's sold.
Yes.
So part of what that may be showing is that we're having an increased amount of people not being able to afford their mortgages and their taxes, you know, so it may not be everything that's shared about that.
Yeah, clearly up there.
The rates are low enough to get it sold, and the rates are low enough this year.
And then
One of those, by the way, was a long time issue on Lambert's Lane, so, not Lambert's
Oh.
Lane, Cedar Drive. I'm sorry, no, Lambert's Lane.
Lambert's Lane.
Lambert's Lane, yeah,
So
yeah.
that did get resolved?
The lien got bought out, absolutely, so, and then the issues with the property are not resolved, but
No.
they're not the treasure collector's property.
That's very,
So that was that's a chunk of that, yeah, and that involved, that was at a state actually, so that was a very complicated family situation, so that sometimes happens. They couldn't resolve who was the owner. So, we got the time out tomorrow.
So a third party came in and bought the lien? Is that-
No, one of the family members did. So,
continue.
And then, again, everything in the revenue side looks in line with budget in last year's first quarter. Another kind of free cash hit that will work out for us is we received about $42,000 of FEMA grants. Really, this is reimbursement from the 2013 blizzards.
Right.
So all of a sudden, they've come around to finally reimburse us for all that hard work in 2013.
So how does that get booked?
Yeah.
Comes in, because it's so late, it comes into the general fund, basically just as a one-time revenue.
So it's one-time revenue, it's cash in the
It's cash
general
in,
fund,
really because it's from 5 years ago.
You can't
This
go
is
back.
all from reimbursement of prior year expenses. So there's no, you really can't reclass any current year expenses
Right.
because it's just one year match up.
And that's coming in our first I'm sorry.
They sent in the receipts of cost of that, and it just takes a long time for the federal to kick in. So there was an original list of expenses. that
Oh,
was
yeah,
sent.
yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
the question I'm asking. The thing is, the cash goes into the general fund, it was a grant payable, basically,
Yeah.
and it got paid.
Yep.
And that was the first quarter of this year?
Yes.
How much was that again?
42,000. So you can't appropriate from that, you can't do it, that will just sit in that revenue account till the end of the year, and since it's
That's free cash.
unbudgeted, it's kinda like the tax liens,
Goes right
it
to free
just
cash.
goes right to free cash.
So the 220,000 tonight.
First quarter.
Again, and then I'll make sure over the next week, I'll update everything for, June 30th, just like these year-end reports, get them out to you ahead of time, and then come back and just do a little once over
early.
again.
Yeah,
Great.
I'm gonna start
Thank
doing
you.
monthly, so we'll get back to the cycle.
And then I'm gonna, Chris and I were talking earlier, I'll work with Jim, whoever, to get these up online. Either, the finance department will figure out a good place to put them. Once I come to you guys, explain everything that's going on, put them up on the website for the town to see.
Fabulous. Great.
Hey, Don.
Good work. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good, John.
Thanks for hanging in
Good to
there
see you.
till 8:20
Thank you.
something.
Can I ask just one quick question?
Yeah.
So, soft right, okay, up and down, are we okay? I mean, hoping
He
we're
said he
talking about a
liked it.
replacement?
I think it's fine. We will need to look into a replacement.
Okay.
I just don't know where Springbrook is gonna go. Who's up, no, really, Acela, Springbrook,
The
consortium of a number of financial softwares. I don't know where they're gonna go with the software product.
And they don't, because I saw them in multiple at the conference I was at, and they admitted to me that they still don't know whether this is going to be. Springbrook is a Northwestern product, and the Pacific Northwest. They have a lot of selling for the product base, but they're not going forward with the enhancements that are going. So they're either going to modify Springbrook and make it Springbrook East, or do something else.
Which is a lot of work, because every state has its own chart of accounts.
That's the challenge.
That's
Now,
a huge challenge.
on the other hand, there's hundreds of clients potentially here, so is it worth it to them? So and that's what they said, every state's we know that. So, they're gonna have, Don's made it work, which is great. That said, it's still a cumbersome product. I have to go through 5 bizarre steps to approve a purchase order. And if I didn't know what they were, you can't figure it out. It's not an intuitive system. So that said, Don is making work, so that's the most important thing. As long as the people who need to make it work, make it work. Doesn't run good reports,
And that's just partly kind of trial and error, learning which reports work best. Just the way sub funds work in it, not to get too technical, but it's just if you run a certain report, it doubles up what would be revenue in an amended budget, so it looks like you have almost double the money in your accounts. But I was actually talking to the library today because they had a question about an account, and I think it would be good for me to just might put together a little question and answer session with the group once I kind of wrap up the first quarter, and just to have people on the same page of how to run the reports to make sure they're looking at the right balances in accounts. So we'll see. For now, it's good, but I do get nervous that if they're not going to support or push us to a product that we don't know, definitely makes me nervous. But well, I think we'll have to just start shopping around and just see what's out there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don. Good job.
All right, moving right along. Chris will walk us through this warrant.
So, all right, so you have a 9-article warrant in front of you. Let me walk through it really quickly. And Don's gonna sit here for this just for a second. So article page 1, page 2. So the amendments. So Don is. We don't expect to have to do any supplemental appropriations at this point, but there may be 1 or 2 transfers. So which Don is working up. So nothing big. It's just moving money that's from one department to another. And that's it's nothing substantial. We'll do the big stuff at the end of the year. There are no unpaid bills. We put it on here anyway just in case. So still no unpaid bills.
Because we love seeing none at this
So
time.
here's the first cut of stabilization. So Don and I talked about this. This is subject to change, but this is the first cut to think about. There are 4 stabilization funds. There are 3 stabilization funds in reserve. Because the special ed is technically reserve funding, but it's called the stabilization. So 75,000 into the general stabilization fund because we need to keep that. It's good, but we need to keep money going into it. 500,000 into capital. 25,000 into special ed. And again, this may tweak. We want to get that up to its max, and there's a cap on it, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I didn't have time before I meeted.
That's the sped fund?
Yeah,
It's 250, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think so.
we're right on the edge. It's a percentage of the budget, so we're gonna try to get it to whatever the max number is, and if that's less than 25, it'll be less than 25.
Okay.
And then OPEB, it's the 115 we already talked about, and then rolling up to 4. We're putting in 350 to increase that number to 4, plus the money where you put it at annual. So that's another increasing step.
Yep.
So 500 into capital budget, that's I think that's the lowest appropriation we've done in a long time.
No, this is a big one for the fall.
For the fall.
No.
Enhance
No,
with
no.
the
We put it on,
This
we
is
put
the
it 1.1.
additional funds.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We put it 1.1 in the spring.
Got it.
This is actually one of the largest numbers we've done in the fall.
Thank you.
Because we're not putting it at the general anymore. We don't really need to put that much in the general.
Right.
Yes, so this is a supplemental appropriation.
Yeah, and we all, I think there's a consensus that this capital project needs to get done, we need to put money in the capital, so.
Great.
So, yeah, and this is a big, so this is for consideration, so,
So, total $1 million
$1 million
appropriated out of free
out of free cash
cash
into the
the
stabilization.
funds.
which is at least 2/3 of that money.
That's awesome.
So,
How does these match up with what our policies are regarding these? If you don't know it now, at least before we vote on it,
exactly.
would you just let us know, you know?
So I can tell you that in terms of general, the goal is just to keep us right where we are, which is full.
So this would
There's a
put
max.
us there.
That would keep us there.
What about-
The special ed is to keep us at whatever the max number
I
is.
think it's 250. What are we at now, do you know?
I'm
All right, just so
doing-
when we vote on it, we have it figured
Yes.
out, so we know.
And then the capital, it's, that's a policy goal. It's not,
We don't have a goal,
The-
we used to do $1 million every year.
No, but that's in the
That's the
spring.
appropriation.
That's
Nice.
spring.
This is supplemental
That's-
money,
Yeah.
the OPEB, this is an ongoing effort to try to get more and more into that without
And
reining-
that committee will hopefully at some point, probably for FY '21, come to us with recommendations on,
Yes, so we have a little extra money, it's not a bad thing to put
Put
an
it
extra
there.
50 or 100 into that now. It's a good face on a good faith, and our commitment. The next page is allocation of one-time costs, there are 3 at the moment. Carol's looking to buy these poll pads or electronic voter check-ins, they're using it, hanging them at home. She's gonna test them out for early voting, so if you early vote here, you'll actually check in with this. If she likes them, that's what they're gonna cost. If she doesn't like them, this will come off.
okay,
What do you mean if you early vote?
So when you early vote, you have to sign in.
Yeah,
So she's gonna use these poll pads to check you in for the whole week. It's
Record.
electronic check-in as opposed to a.
instead of those big printouts.
if you come to town hall and
Correct.
vote, you'll vote on this pad.
No,
so-
you'll vote on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
but you'll sign in electronically.
Gotcha.
And if she likes it, she's gonna, because they've been using it for town meeting, it speeds up the town meeting registration process. You
Yeah.
just check a box, check a
So
box.
this is a good way to test it with the early
Correct.
voters, yeah.
But it's an attendance tester, so the audience knows we're still using paper ballots to do voting.
This is purely
Just
for
an
signing.
attendance.
This is just for
Check-in,
attendance, correct.
yeah.
It's just for check-in, it's not the ballots.
Got that.
Because I know Hingham actually does vote electronically at town meeting. This has nothing to do with that. So, we need to update our hazard mitigation plan. This is another one of the plans the state makes us do in order to get FEMA and MEMA money. So if we wanna get emergency, that's like the Jerusalem Road Causeway money, that, repair, proactive repair money. It's due. The plan was last done in 2008, it's due for a refresh. Pete got an estimate from APC that did the plan last time, so the 20,000 should be the max. I'm hoping it'll come in less, but it's something that kind of need to do. Facilities, there's been a big push for maintenance, extra maintenance, so Mark and his crew are putting together a list of projects. That's the target, right now, so he's gonna, I have a set of projects, Nick is gonna get me another set of projects. There's a deep cleaning and upgrades at the library that we really need to get done, there's a little bit of work in this building, some stuff in the schools. These are, proactive, preventative maintenance things that are above and beyond the budget.
So at one point, we had talked about painting these buildings, just to get us through the winter.
We're gonna get to that in a second, James. That's an excellent point. There may be a couple of others, so we're doing an in-house capital meeting tomorrow, and then maybe, like Bill quickly mentioned a couple of other things to me, and we'll talk more about that. The next one, scenic roadways. There've been 5 applications approved by the planning board for consideration by town meeting for scenic roadways. Atlantic Avenue, Nichols Road, Jerusalem Road, South Main Street, and Beach Street. If you remember, in 2017, town meeting approved the scenic way bylaw. This is the first time in what that utilized.
2 quick things on this, just more for the informational summary. One is, are these the entire lengths of all these streets? Which would be helpful just to know. And maybe it's just in the language, I don't know if that's up to council, but
I'm asking council to give me better language.
yeah, and can we also make sure we summarize what this means?
Yes.
What,
Yeah, so next meeting, I'd like to have planning come in and talk to you about this, so you can understand what this all is. I think you have them scheduled for this meeting, John, so advisory earlier, I've heard about it,
Great. So
article.
just for clarification, so planning's going to advisory this week?
So we're
on
trying to
this.
keep them ahead and.
Perfect.
Capital, the LED streetlights we talked about, the board said to continue to move it forward. I know there's a lot of vetting to be done, but this is the placeholder for it. The project is actually $100,000, but there's a state grant and utility incentives that you bring our cost actually less than 60. I rounded it up a little bit from the work that Steve Girardi had done with MAPC, just to give a little cushion. So that's now ready for conversation. We just got the numbers the end of last week.
So what's the next stop for that?
The next stop for that is capital budget and advisory to have conversations that come back to you guys.
One quick thing on that,
Yeah.
Hingham, and I don't know if this is because I go down Cushing Street in the morning when it's dark, they have replaced every single light, and they're all LED lights, pretty much 228 onto Cushing, pushing all the way down to 53. They're exceedingly bright, so
Well,
the only thing
they
that's.
don't have to be exceeded.
No, but I mean, the ones they placed just to air out the ideas. Where the light comes out, it's more of like a fish lens that comes out as opposed to the old lights are kind of up in the socket. So it gives a little more broader light. So you know.
So we're gonna
Brightness
install
and-
one of these tentative, there's already some on Depot Court already, they've never come down, they're still there. There'll be another one of these installed, and we'll see what people's comments are.
Well, are they on Depot Court, right in the parking lot?
No, they're on the street.
Are they?
Yeah, they're on the
Like
street.
on,
You can, I mean, one of the interesting things is it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
But they're there. So there's 2 or 3 of them.
if you're gonna, hang on one sec, if you're gonna, put additional ones,
Just one.
or one additional one someplace, I
It'll
would-
be there.
I would just say, all right, but as soon as possible, just
Yes.
because, I mean, we're gonna have to vote on this warrant in the next couple of weeks.
So there's been really, I mean, the goal is to get a basic, simple one that just basically has the same brightness as we are. We're not
Right.
looking to get extravagant, we're not looking at fancy colors.
Strobe lights.
No strobe, no multi-changing colors. I know there's a lot of things you can do with LEDs. I don't think the town is really looking for radical. You know, the Tobin Bridge changes colors and stuff, and I'm sorry, the Zakin Bridge changes
Yeah.
colors. I don't think it's-
Just make sure capital budget has enough time to go through
Yes.
the technology, cause you know, there are a couple people there that are.
No, we understand. So we have time to get to December still.
John, did you wanna say something? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say where I think those lights are.
Okay. And
I
on,
went
are they on this end of Depot?
No, there's one across, like right in front of the post office, across from, I don't know, where
USA
Josh
Made
or,
Whatever.
Fresh Feast.
Mass-
Avid
Abigail, this little lot there, and the other one across from the upholstery place.
From the what?
Inside the post office.
The upholstery place. All right, so pay attention.
Let's take a look.
Right
There
home
were
that way.
tours. We had tours months ago. People wanted to look. Let me skip over the next one. I'll go right back to that. So the Arm River Reservoir Dam, that's the work that has to get done. That's 240. There's a firm proposal to get that work done, which DPW department has. So
What is it, the nature of what needs to get done?
it's just routine maintenance.
So it's routine maintenance.
They're not rebuilding the dam. They're just it's inspection and upgrades. And,
Generally,
I can share with you.
This is something they have to do every so often.
Yes. So the dam stays safe. That would be that.
And this would come out of, what department?
The water. This is
Water,
water
they're all
retained
retained
earnings. Because it was actually budgeted this year. They didn't get as far in the project, so we couldn't encumber
So
the money.
this is the one that Don mentioned earlier, was the surplus?
Yeah.
So are they gonna do it this year? Cause I know there's concerns about that drag.
Yeah, it should get done.
So we can,
That's the goal. So preparation of plans and specific. This is just a holder here for the moment. So I'm going to jump ahead to my report just to get into this. The analysis that I talked about that was done by the third party, a company that does analysis with private companies that buy buildings has been completed. We have a draft. We have a report with staff's preparing an executive summary of the report, and we have a spreadsheet of proposed capital to just do the repairs. It's a very large number. It's a detailed number. There's a chunk of work that has to get done immediately of their recommendations. When I say immediately, it's priority work, I should say. And then there's stuff that still needs to get done, but it doesn't have to get done tomorrow. Believe it or not, the roof painting is not as much of a priority as electrical HVAC. There's some substantial issues there. So, Jason will come in from the board, Jason Federico will bring him next meeting on the 23rd to present this. And my recommendation is for the board to consider doing a open meeting on November 8th, which is Thursday, with capital advisory and others to hear the company come in and do the report and talk about next steps.
We please give them the report ahead of
Yeah,
time, so we don't have
we'll give it
issues.
all to you, and then we'll post it on the website. It's a large 7-digit number. I mean, it's done by a third-party company that's done all this work. So, but we don't have time to go into it
So
tonight.
let everybody go through it.
Exactly.
Right,
So,
just to summarize, this is
so
for
this is
repairs
only
on town
here
hall.
if the board decides it wants to do something. Any work, whether it's repair or something larger, it's going to need more. Have to be some plant and specs done or some engineering, for example, if you're doing electrical. Even if you're doing painting, there'll have to be some advanced work.
And that's ready to get released, you could release that in the next couple of days?
Yeah, well, first, I mean, they're preparing it, the staff's preparing the report is thick, so that, Jason and Brian do an executive summary on top of it, so we'll release it with that, yes, and we'll release it to everybody to be on the website. Okay. I wouldn't want this to be fully transparent, so it was illuminating. But it was good to do, it was well worth the money, it was a fairly inexpensive process.
Probably should have done it 2 years ago.
Well,
Anyway,
hindsight's 20/20,
sorry.
right? So the acquisition of real property, this is the acquisition that the board is, it's in negotiation now. This is the 3A parcel, the 585 Chief Cushing, Justice Cushing. The town has a right of first refusal. Council is down working with their broker and they're dotting the i's across the t's and getting the final number done. So I expect that to be ready for shortly.
And where would this money come from?
Well, that's up to all of you. I mean, it could come out of free cash, it could come out of capital reserve, it could come out of free cash that went through the capital reserve.
Okay.
We could bond it, I mean, you know.
So we should
We'll
start thinking
discuss
about
that,
that.
Yeah, so, you know, you already know the number, because you know what we're talking about, so.
And you're gonna shoot that to capital budget too?
Yeah.
I mean, when can we release that info? Is that, you know?
Still negotiating.
Let me, I'm gonna talk to Lou in the next couple days,
Okay.
so that, I get a final. So, the next one is new. So Paul Durensis forwarded to Diane and I think to all of you over the weekend. So one of the challenges when you, so I'm sure everyone got it home, you're talking about the warrant, the state has, everyone got a little red book at home, which explains the ballot questions. That's the state, there's a whole process for the state. At the local levels, ballot questions like the town had this past spring, there's no process to put an official statement in front of all the voters. This, which, by the way, I know looks very voluminous, but basically, in some substance, what this does is if you adopt this law at the local level, town council is authorized to create a general explanation and then gather information from the proponents and the opponents and put it in a book just like the state is. And council is charged with that because they're theoretically neutral. That's how it's supposed to work. So one of the challenges, again, it's highly likely at some point in Glass's future, whenever that may be, there'll be a ballot question for something. And the ability to properly communicate with residents through the board, this is a stable element that allows that to happen. It's done in a lot of other communities. This is just to start the conversation. You may all decide it's premature, we should wait till the spring. Paul recommended we start the conversation. I read it. It's worth having a conversation. So that's why it's came from. I'm
So
guessing
it was-
you kind of want to hear him or someone else talk, right?
Well,
Hold on.
Or maybe not.
Paul.
I have one question. Why wasn't this considered an open?
Because I knew nothing about it. So
No, you're
I was
right.
literally
No.
told.
Tell
I
you
learned about
later.
it on Sunday.
Sunday night.
So,
Monday.
along those lines, the concept makes a great deal of sense, and frankly, I think if we were to consider adopting it, you adopt it for the global perspective, right? It's not for now, it's for any of the number
It's for
of
long term.
questions that
Exactly.
come up.
Future.
Well, likewise, I think we needed a clear definition of what constitutes town council with respect to writing the document. Okay?
Generally speaking, it would be the official council approved by the board of selectmen as the town council.
Well, where I'm going with that is, we've got a lawyer here on the board, and we've got the chairman who's married to an attorney, and there are varying degrees of communication skill that come through a law school education. And I'd be deeply concerned that our current range of counsel could handle, a cogent description. And yet that's exactly what voters would need.
Can I just add something?
On
that?
both sides, actually.
Yes.
Is sort of to add on to that, I mean, just for our reflection when you think about it, but I initially heard about this, but the thing that concerned me is similar to that is what I'm more concerned about is one entity formulating both the argument for and the argument against. So say it's something that's sponsored by the selectmen in the town, so you get that argument, that's pretty straightforward. But there may be opposition that they're gonna be responsible for describing, and then it seems to me we could get into quite a squabble as to, did the opposition get properly described? Would people be raising their hand and say, well, you listened to all the people on such and such a street, but you didn't listen to our opposition? So beyond, I think beyond even what Steve is saying, the actual content of that opposition, it sounds to me like that could be fairly controversial. And so I'm not so sure whether we wanna lock ourselves into that. The second thing is that I wanna know is that if we were to pass this, are we locked into it? In other words, does it have to be and if we are locked into it, I'm even getting more nervous, because people in a democracy, grassroots, may want to express themselves.
It shows you what a highly politically charged environment
No,
we
but I
live in,
think
right?
those are
Right.
really
No, I
good concerns. I mean,
agree
I'd
with
be
them on
really
both of
worried
them.
about it. And after we're long gone, we understand, intent, right? 20 years from now, who's gonna understand the intent of these laws?
So, so section E, by the way, discusses, again, you haven't had really a chance to look at this yet, discusses a process by putting a proponent and opponent, how to determine who they are and all of that. Now, there's no perfect process, right?
This could take weeks.
That's
a lot of work.
But there's actually a lot of time constraints. You have to do it with a certain amount of time, because that's being, the voters' day is no later than 7 days before the election. So there's a very condensed period of time.
Could you ask, hang on, Stephen, I'll let you speak.
I'd like to have.
Could you, I'd be curious to know who has adopted such a thing, and just in general, just so we can do a little more research.
Look, I fully support the notion of giving voters a summary of a big ballot question, because, well, frankly, you get a lot of passion at the town meeting, but, an override is gonna be determined by the people who show up at the polls. And they're not necessarily as well informed, even marginally well informed as the folks that show up at town meeting. Kevin's point, though, is worth considering for another reason, and that is the town council responds to us. And so there's the potential for a bias in it. Does this law, does adopting this law give us the capability to farm it out to an uninvolved third party who could be assigned as counsel for that task? I don't mean to make too much out of it.
No.
Oh, you're not.
These are clearly questions that have to be answered, which is the reason we're.
And we've been doing the warrants I've been involved for 15 years. I've never heard I have heard some complaints, but for the most part, it works pretty well,
Well, the warrants, we have a long history. Warrants are,
Informational.
and the warrants, we
These
have a
are
lot more
ballot-
flexibility
these are
with
ballot
warrants. These are ballot questions. This is a different,
Should be
which the
like
town
a
hadn't really
ballot.
considered a number of
Right.
years. And
but wouldn't
one
this
of-
apply to
No.
the way we
No.
write?
No. This has nothing to do with
Strictly on ballot.
No ballot questions. This is purely ballot
So-
questions.
So let's ponder this, we'll talk
Yes.
about it next
And I'll
week.
see
It
if we
may
can't get
be that there's too many unknowns for us to deal with it at special town meeting for sure, and then we can,
So having an
whatever.
extra meeting will help a little more
Yep.
time to do that.
Yep.
So, but it's on here because it seemed
We
like
might
a
as
very,
well think about whether
it
we
was
want
worth
it.
it. And if you don't wanna put it on, we just don't put it on.
Yeah,
So,
this is
the last one is community preservation. There has to be a renewal of at least one, if not two, grant, authorizations that were made that expired, but the projects are still living. The Northwood Field is one of them. And I believe there was a second, that's escaping me now, but definitely the Milliken Field. They've already voted to extend the Milliken Field to August of next year. That's to get the bathrooms and stuff done there. Because without that, we can't spend the money.
Sawyer Street.
Oh, yes, there's land, the money for retrofitting or planning for the outside. So I need to get them to do that, so.
So can they come before us next, are they coming in front of advisory soon?
That's a fairly, I can set that up, so that's I can give Russ a call.
I mean, and do we need, do we need to kind of litigate those topics, or is it literally just a procedural
This is literally just
extension?
extending the authorization by another, so that the work can get done this spring, as opposed to having to wait till the spring to have it reauthorized till next year. The goal is to get, particularly with the Millington Field, is to get those bathrooms done this spring.
So the goal is, just in terms of timing, the goal is if we need this warrant buttoned up and ready to mail by November 9th or November 8th, or they're close there.
Yep.
We really should be trying to vote as many recommendations as we can, and it's pretty straightforward. Next meeting, which is October 23rd.
So the goal is to get as much to advise our members before that. If you don't, whatever's still lingering, we have to have the 7th.
Sure.
To button it up. And again, most of these are fairly simple routine.
Yep.
Some of them are not. I mean, you gotta understand the scenic roadway stuff, bylaws.
Yes.
And obviously, the capital project stuff, the LEDs and a lot of the other small projects that are fairly straightforward, pole pads. And, we need to do the plan of the hazard mitigation plan, and I think those are all fairly straightforward.
So, at one point, we're talking about reappropriating the funds for doing the ramp over on Parker Avenue. Did we resolve?
That's
all
actually
done? We don't have to do anything?
No, that actually has expired, so that's
good.
And that's actually been awarded, I think, or about to be awarded. So, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So that's the warrant, and so based on John, you'll get a fresh version of this tonight. You now have it. There's a couple of numbers in there that weren't behind you.
Electronic.
I'll give you electronic. Yes.
When is advisory taking this up?
Thursday.
We're meeting this Thursday. We'll hear from Peter, and we'll get basically this briefing from Chris. It doesn't sound like they're sort of buttoned down firmly enough for the most part to actually slow down this week. In terms of the numbers being real solidified. Then our next meeting is scheduled for the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, we're generally Wednesdays and Thursdays and your Tuesdays.
You do the 17th?
Pardon?
You do the 17th?
We can talk. I can't. I'm gonna be out of town, but they might be able to.
We'll work on it.
And also particularly on the capital items, wanting to put the capital.
Yeah, I haven't. Sam has this. I sent this to Sam as well.
When are they meeting?
I don't know. I gotta follow this.
I mean, because I want to do what Diane that she has suggested, but on the other hand, I really hate to vote on these things without knowing what the
No,
advisors
I don't want to, but.
Especially the town hall
So-
stuff, you gotta get.
No. That's gonna.
That's
That has a bigger conversation than that. That's just there as a placeholder. If there's not consensus, it'll just come along. But on the other hand, I think it's there because I think we want to get there.
and again, like we can make recommendations getting into, we end up drilling down on the motions anyway with some last minute numbers. The warrant that needs to go in the mail is really a snapshot agenda, but I would love to have it as complete as possible. But if there are things that we're still deliberating about, then that is
The
what
last
it
number
is.
is that can always be, we can always give people that information.
And we are meeting on the 7th, so at the very least, if there's anything we can vote on October 23rd.
We have a month, 30 days. That's it. Hopefully enough time to look at 9 things, 30 days. We're also looking ahead to the spring. That's other stuff.
Spring.
Wow. The other thing, there's one other item that I'll bounce off is we're talking about the warrant. So, and it doesn't have to happen. So if you remember, Brian Dress prepared a very nice road opening policy, which the board adopted. Our bylaws don't quite match the policy. So Brian is recommending that we amend the bylaws. I think the simplest way to do that would be to take out the specs of the bylaw and just refer to the policy as adopted by the board of selectmen. So I haven't talked through that with him. We can do that in the spring. It doesn't have to happen now because the policy is going to govern that. But even if we're going to still use the policy, it's quite exactly what I should. So that's the only other thing that's out there. I don't want to. It's kind of a last minute thing. We literally just talked about it. I don't want to push something on at the last minute.
Good.
All right.
All right.
Any
Good work.
questions of, so I think there's enough meat here to get people into the room, particularly, I think the scenic byways are gonna get people in the room by themselves, so scenic road is.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we just really have to be give as good and full an explanation in the informational summary on the warrant as possible, so people really understand what it is they're doing, which is or isn't a big deal. Okay, next are selectmen goals and objectives and our annual budget message. Jack, do you wanna, I circulated over the past, 24, 36 hours, the ranking that, Jack and I did, so, we basically took everybody's top 10, weighted them, if you gave it, if you ranked it as number 1, we gave it 10 points, and we added up all the points and divided it by the number of selectmen that actually registered that, so we have a quantitative ranking of the goals. So the first one is town hall. The second one is master plan, harbor plan, open space, and rec. So in general, just making sure those. Well, there's action items which I'll let Jack go off on in a minute. We consolidated the two power issues in town and also general utilities infrastructure, basically because of the way people voted, like some ignored one and put it all in the other, and we felt they were fairly representative of the same kind of global goal. Number 4 is the 5 and 10-year capital plan, and number 5 is affordable housing. And then the rest, I included everything on this list that at least one selectman had in their top 10. If you followed in terms of the quantitative number that we gave these, it was complete streets, study and plan for 3A, legal services town council, committee management, HR director, facilities and road maintenance plan, zoning bylaw review, cell service, annual financial review, security issues, technology analysis, and PR social media function to manage town communications. I'm gonna turn it over to Jack in a minute, but one of the things that I just wanted you to pay attention to in the bottom from 6 to number 17 is there's only a couple of them that had multiple selectmen rank them in their top 10. So even though complete streets came out higher, it's because 2 selectmen had them at, like, let's say number 6, but the other 3 didn't rank them at all. But legal services, town council, committee management, and HR director were noted by 4 selectmen. So I just think that's an important thing to pay attention to. So what we would like to do or recommend is that we fill in a grid with the 5 being the most important, and then the next 5, and then the next 5, and we can, as we crank through them, and that grid, which I sent you, which is blank, just has the subject, town hall, the goal, the item that we need to address. And then we would populate another column with what actions need to take place to address town hall. Hold a town forum, review the building analysis, et cetera, and that we would love to get everyone's input on these. And then the next column would be the town manager. So for example, HR director is a priority. It really is the town manager's responsibility as opposed to the selectmen. So that would fall as this grid would show what we're looking over and then what Chris's piece of executing our goals and thereby his own goals. And then the last column would be, Jack and I, in discussions of this, thought we should have one selectman kind of be the scorekeeper on each of these items, so that it's, so if we, let's say, the legal services issue is number 6, and we're ready to start dealing with that, and Paul's in charge of that. Well, if I'm not getting it on the agenda, that would be Paul's to say, listen, we haven't dealt with this yet, it's time, kind of thing. So just somebody, we've already talked about Kevin, you know, helping because he's passionate about it, helping really drive the conversation with respect to power, and just giving each of us some kind of a liaison role to that particular topic or goal of the board. You wanna enhance?
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that the selectman's gonna do the work, it just means the selectman is the point of contact for that goal, and they're responsible for keeping track of it. So, the other point I wanted to make is, these 17 issues are the issues that we felt were important to us. And we're not, when we do this ranking, we're not ranking it and saying, this is the most important goal, it's saying, what we're saying is this is the goal we wanna take, this is the issue we wanna tackle first. And that, so for example, town hall was the first issue we really wanted to tackle. And what that tackling that issue means is sitting there and discussing what we wanna do with town hall, coming up with some kind of a solution, talking to Chris about how we wanna have that solution. You know, it could be a year's worth of work, right? But this focuses us on the discussion of how to resolve the issue of town hall to the best of our abilities at some point in time. So, and once you get that done, you drop it off to the, you drop it off and you move to the next issue. So it's a way for us, potentially, if we work well together and we have enough information, we could crank through all 17 issues this year.
Yeah, and at the same time, it just by the nature of how we operate and how Chris operates and how some of this is just naturally in this day-to-day.
Yep.
There's a lot of this that's happening at the same time, and we know, number two, just based on the quantitative data, is master plan, harbor plan, open space and rec. What does that really mean? Well, that probably means that those are important, we let those resolve themselves, then they come to us, and we have to figure out what does that mean. Is there action that we need to take to advance the recommendations?
And we may sit there and talk about how we're gonna use these plans. I mean, cause I don't think we've ever discussed what we're gonna do once we get them. So maybe we have a quick discussion on, what are we gonna do with all this stuff? You know, we're creating this framework for discussing big macro problems in the town, how do we wanna use it? So, you know, it's very flexible, so we just need to decide what we wanna do. And we're not taking the work away from anybody, it's just an opportunity for us to talk about how to resolve these issues.
So one of the questions I have for the board right now is, how do you want to approach the next steps, which would be giving some action steps to some of these goals? And, you know, you can all go home and think about and send, 5 things that address town hall. We can send that, we can fill in the grid from there and then come back, but, we have to.
I hate to say it.
Do we sit down again as the 5 of us and try to populate this, or I don't know, you tell me.
So that what we've done in the past is we've established the goals in one meeting, and then at another meeting, we figured out how they were gonna get done, and usually we didn't Lisa facilitate that?
Therein lies the rub, right? So Lisa, if I would hand her this and. Well, the HR will literally go into Chris's column, right? So that could be number 1 in Chris's column. But right now, absent an HR director.
Well, wait a minute. She had a skill there.
She did indeed.
I don't think that's the reason for hiring one.
Right. But in other words, right now, we don't have somebody to facilitate filling in this grid.
Do it
Staff, and so.
All right, kids. I know somebody who can do it.
It is something that requires conversation, though. I don't see this as something where we send it in and do by the numbers. We need to have a dialogue here. And I think with the progress we've had here is good.
So there's a woman in town who's a professional facilitator who knows how to do this if you want, and I'm sure she'd volunteer her time if you wanted to do it.
So let's do 2 things. Can we all take this home and start making some notes, and what are action steps that address each of these goals, and stick with the top 10, and which do we just bump immediately over into Chris's column, and then we can see if there's somebody that would facilitate a second meeting. Yeah, because we can't do it in the course of a meeting like this.
No.
It's just impossible.
No, that's
I'll talk to this lady this way.
just plug in and let me know if I can.
I'll talk to you before I leave.
Talk to Chris about that.
That'd be great, so we'll set, I don't know, again, time's gonna get real tight.
I know.
So, but just let me know when you wanna try to do
So we can crank through this pretty fast. I mean,
Yeah, you
you
just
can
need a
really,
night.
you can do it in 2 or 3 hours.
No,
If we're
absolutely.
organized
If
on
you're
it,
really,
You're just
if
gonna
you're
need
dumping enough
it's gonna need a
information.
night to do that, an
Yeah,
off night.
that's why I'm asking each of you tonight to just take this and start thinking how you would plot out each of these. How do you accomplish
Well, it's
these
also giving you a
words?
framework that you can roll right into next year.
Right.
Because, you know, you're not gonna, it'd be great if you got through
Reinvent the
17
wheel
things.
every year.
Yeah, but if you don't, you just repopulate.
The other thing is, Lisa did do, when we met to discuss our goals and objectives, you know, a lot of this is already articulated. She's already done a lot of this work for us, cause in advance, she put in potential goals.
Yes.
That's how we got to this.
Or action items.
And action steps. Okay.
We did that collaboratively.
All right, any input before we move on to budget message? All right, great, thank you. Budget message. So I didn't get any specific edits to the budget message. The only thing I would like to recommend that we, so this budget message, again, as I said last time, is pretty similar to previous budget messages. There's one thing in here which was a very specific recommendation of the advisory board relating to capital priorities. So one of the things in the budget message is to establish capital priorities and funding plans. The 5th bullet says, town manager shall work with the finance director to present for approval by the selectmen a formula for an increased annual appropriation for capital. So we're looking for some kind of formula. What is that? It's X percentage of this or that. Advisory specifically recommended that the sum of the appropriations for non-excluded debt service and the capital stabilization fund, net of transfers to capital stabilization debt service, be at least 5% of the operating budget. So I just wanna take out that language, because that's their specific recommendation. We are charging in this for the town manager and the finance director to bring us some options for that, one of which could be this. So I just am recommending that we strike that right from the budget message. Okay.
The item itself is, I think, well intended. That is to say that the proposed stricken language is well intended. But it really goes back to a policy to be adopted by us, which directs the activity of the town manager, whoever sits in that seat, to maintain sufficient funding such that our capital our capital inventory can be properly maintained and replaced as needed. And that doesn't mean simply replacing something because we own one. It might be that we don't actually need that thing. But that comes with developing a plan and a funding mechanism and so on. So without understanding what that long-term capital strategy is, and I say without us understanding what it is, because that is the statutory role of the town manager. It's gonna be hard for us to say, well, this is the number.
This is the right formula, right?
It's, better yet, it's gonna be impossible to get it right. So, it does, as a budget policy, it falls really more as a directive of the town manager to create the capital plan and strategy, which is his role, articulate it, identify what those anticipated funding requirements might be, and then back into that and say, oh, by the way, that's so much of our current operating budget. We actually had done this many years ago, many moons ago, in a very crude method. And Jack may recall that we actually had at one point a fairly comprehensive inventory of plant equipment and other capital items. And that included dams, roadways, etc. Right? And then they were aged out by the then finance director at a cost structure. Basically, they were depreciated, okay? And then rolled back to replacement cost, and so we looked at that and said, all right, so what's the number? What does it take to maintain this? That wasn't building anything new, that was just, what does it take to support your capital inventory? And at that point, it was, remember what year that was?
2008, 9.
Yeah, at that point, it was $1.92 million per year at the very base level. And of course, that doesn't include inflation and everything else.
New projects.
Yeah, no, it absolutely didn't include new projects. So, without even understanding what we may have coming down the pike, although we can sit here and identify some of those larger projects, we don't really even have an understanding at the moment of what it takes to maintain our current structure. Variables that will go into that are the potential for regionalization for some services. Maybe our inventory needs go down. On the other hand, maybe it goes the other way. Maybe our inventory needs rise in cost, but we have an offset because the productivity that comes from that equipment might reduce our labor requirements. So I hate to say it, but kick it back.
So let me ask you specifically for this, which is a kind of a.
I propose the removal of that language.
That's where I was going with this, right? That
No, so-
right, and then we have separately, because this is really for the operating budget, for the FY20 operating budget, and then we separately work on this, and we've requested a 10-year capital plan.
I would actually love to see language in this, and it doesn't have to be adopted tonight, so we can all think about it. And something to the effect that town manager should work with finance director to present for approval by the selectmen a formula for annual appropriation of sufficient capital
Dollars, money.
sufficient capital to maintain current inventory and and capabilities for encompassing projected future needs. The language needs to be clean, I think. But you understand where I'm going with it. I'm trying to encapsulate what advisory is asking of us.
Right.
Get a grip on what your needs are.
Right.
And then follow that up with a separate sentence that commits us to adopting a policy
Right.
to be able to do that.
That's where I was going with my question, was should we add that we will come up with policy, but that's kind of separate from FY20
Which is the last.
operating budget direction.
Capital comes out.
I don't
do
think
it.
so, if
No.
in fact we can actually, remember, it's a policy.
Right.
Policies can change and policies should change as they're informed by experience. But putting this in place as a budget directive commits us to making sure that this piece gets done.
Yep. So,
And it directs Chris as to how he's gonna divide free cash, you know, cause these stabilization funds get financed out of free
Excuse me,
cash.
Right.
so wouldn't we be better off going straight to it and having this section be where we do develop a policy relative to the expenditure of capital needs in town?
Well,
And
I
then
think,
we can try to work out a policy.
I think we should, but we need, that policy's gotta be informed by the town manager executing on his role.
Which is what?
His job is the capital plan.
up above,
So,
right.
we have him do that, we're gonna get that done, and then at the same time, we'll be working on developing a policy, once we have that plan, a policy for priorities and whatever we wanna have as a capital. That discussion alone might be worthwhile, we have of establishing that as a board, as opposed to, I'm having a hard time figuring out the usefulness of a formula. Again, do we wanna lock ourselves in future boards and,
Well, I
I'd
think
much
that's-
rather see what's our policy about capital in this town, you know? And we got,
I think that's
So
exactly the
So
point.
should we recommend,
that
so
would be
right
the better thing
now,
to do.
we'll hold off on approval of this? I mean, this is basically not gonna materially change this plan, but by next meeting, just change that language to reflect what you just said and the responsibility of us to have policy discussions relating to
Yeah, I mean,
capital going forward.
Well, again, and again, I just wanna make sure that, mine's a suggestion for the board to consider. I do believe we
So the
we ought
history of
to-
that language is, we never appropriated capital into a stabilization fund for
Right.
years. So where do you start? So we
Right.
started by taking something and, you know, at least isolating some of that free cash into a stabilization fund. We've gotten to the point now where we're doing a pretty good job and everybody agrees that that's what we should be doing. That wasn't the case 7
Right,
years ago,
right.
you know, so we can modify
Like
this a little
OPEB.
bit to give you more flexibility.
But we recognize without the language that I think you're suggesting, we all know that it should be more. So the question
Yeah,
is,
it's
that's
how
our
you accomplish
policy discussion.
Yeah, now it's
and-
time to take a look.
Yep.
The capital basis that we have currently is, I would argue it's not sufficient for maintaining our current structure. And I say this recognizing that capital is not just fire trucks and dump trucks and, you know, stuff like
Bunch
that.
of other things.
It includes roads, it includes bridges, et cetera, so.
And I think capital budget committee, they've got a good perspective, they have to be involved in this conversation.
Yeah.
I think we should at least ask their opinion of what they think their needs are gonna be going forward, so, and they'll do some of the heavy lifting for Chris.
So Chris,
Yeah.
where are we at with, I know you've been working with the capital, putting together this 10-year capital plan. I mean, when is that something we are?
Well, we've been shooting for the 23rd to do a first look with you folks first, with the 10-year. If that's still, I mean, we could push it back if we wanna have a little more time.
No, I think we need to have that
Yeah,
conversation.
so we're
as
gonna
soon
start
as
the
possible.
conversation on that on the 23rd.
Okay.
And we're meeting this week.
Okay.
Internally, we're meeting next week, hopefully with representatives, advisory and capital, looking at some other proposals. And then you folks then say that, yeah, this works, and go back into that. That's the
Okay.
direction.
So we'll just,
one
we'll
other
keep,
quick,
go ahead, Kevin.
just seemed to me somewhere in this town, we should have, unless we're doing shouldn't we have a computer program or a big sheet that tells us what all our capital
Yes.
items are that are
We-
over $1,000, you know, break it so it's not
We've
every
been,
little pen and
we've been
pencil.
asking for it for some time.
So it would seem to me that we should have that. I mean, it's almost like figuring, let's do a road policy but not identify the roads.
So
And
capital
so
budget
why
committee-
can't we, I would think
Hold
to
on,
me, to me, it would be a useful thing
To have the inventory.
to have an inventory, even before all of this.
I want Dawn to speak, yeah.
Can I just give a little bit of history before Don speaks?
All right.
We appropriated funds to do inventory 5 years ago, and we just never got it done.
Seems like a basic thing we should be doing.
Yep, I agree.
Dawn?
So, depending on the level you're looking for, we do have that. We have a capital asset software within software. So for all our financial reporting for our audit reports, you see those big $60, $80 million numbers in our fixed asset. That comes from a report run by Mary and now me. So there is a baseline. I don't know how well that baseline is compared to actual. I don't know how that was, how that came to fruition. I don't know if it was a study done years ago that got all these numbers together, or if it's just data that's been accumulated over years. But
We need to take a look.
it could be a good starting point.
Yeah.
Well,
With people that have been here long enough to cross-reference it, what year was Town Hall built, what was that purchase price, does it all make sense? It could be a good starting point.
Keep in mind, if you would, when you look at that, keep in mind what our definition of capital is. Because
That's the other
that's the other thing.
problem.
Right.
Right, because we actually defined capital in order to be able to budget for it. Because for years, there was a grand workaround, and you'd find capital items being purchased out of the operating budget, and suddenly the operating budget was being inflated by a one-time purchase. And strangely enough, it never went down the next year, go figure. So that's the basis for it, and your first caveat was right on the money, not sure exactly what's in it.
Right.
You know?
We do have an IT inventory that Ron has created in the management. We have a rolling stock inventory, and with the pieces that we approved, we're rolling out this new gas management software, which also manages all the fleet that actually uses. And we also have the major assets are all tracked. Every physical structure we own is in a system. What we don't have is kind of a more granular level in the buildings, light fixtures and, plumbing fixtures. fixtures, that kind of stuff, which Nick is now starting to work through, starting with the senior center to get maintenance plans, and to develop some more of that inventory. I mean, we have building sets of plans, but so maintenance, facilities is now starting that suite. Now, I can honestly tell you, I don't know that we track every chair and everything else.
But bring it up, even up
Right.
higher,
Yeah,
like,
let's
do
go
we have
higher.
roads,
Right.
bridges,
You know, we do.
dams?
We have all
Yeah.
of our roads and all of our physical assets. Now, they're not all necessarily in one place because Don doesn't depreciate the vehicles. I mean, for what's the other one? Depreciates the big structures, the physical things.
Yeah,
So our GIS capabilities allow us to do asset inventory on the big stuff. And I don't think we've gotten there yet. It's a big job.
So we have someone, Jason, who can actually do all of those things. Like we were just showing you a map of the street. It's one of the things that, not to digress, but just to use this as an example, we're looking at the street lights and LED conversion. I wanted to know where all the non-town's lights were. And there's clumps of them in various places. Because I want to be able to show you all, if we do this, here are the lights that aren't going to get changed.
Right.
Because grid owns them or they're privately maintained. Golf course owns some, for example, and some others like that. So we can do that. GIS is a great resource, Jack, which we're actually using more and more of. We actually can track dogs now. We can do that, which helps to identify. We're doing it with street lights. We're doing it. The GIS data we now have can allow us to track and pinpoint traffic control devices and street name signs and catch basins to a degree we never before. So that's now coming into fruition. So the next big piece is kind of the internal building stuff.
Paul?
Is there a way, looking at major structural problems in like buildings, for example, where you have air conditioning, electrical, pump systems, generators, heating systems, boilers, because those are kind of the ones that you're going to depreciate over time, much like you do in a house, and you get 20-year-old water heater, 20-year-old furnace, you're going to have to replace those. Is there a method to do that for most of the buildings in town? Because that's where, like the phone system failed in the schools. I mean, that was a classic one. When you replace it, you replace it, computer every 3 years, you replace a car every 10, you do. Is there a method to do the major structural components of the buildings?
We're doing that now with IT for the phone system. So Ron has that. We're rolling up to the plan to replace major equipment. So that's what facilities has now been tasked with, is developing that. And we actually have software. We have School Dude, which has a cousin called Facilities, the Dude software package.
School Dude?
School Dude.
Because it'd be nice to have, if you know the furnace was replaced 5 years ago, you've got another 15 before you have to replace it, but you've got one where the electrical system like downstairs.
It's all
from
out there.
1920.
Yeah.
So there's an asset management package out there.
So we actually have software that can stretch into some of this stuff. So when we looked at this a few years ago, we didn't actually have the IT infrastructure maybe work. Now we have the IT infrastructure maybe work. People go out to the field and take a picture and so yes. So
That's what I'd like to see is the major structural components.
We may actually
replacement costs. Looking at furnaces,
So just to kind of wrap up this, I mean, one of the things in this budget message, I mean, these are very specific kinds of things that we want to make sure the FY20 operational budget addresses, and we do talk about in number 4, leverage IT organizational planning, and one of the things is specifically data and inventory control management. So these are clearly priorities for us, and I think we're like moving in the right direction. We're not fully where we want to be, but I think when we get the 10-year capital plan and we have those discussions, and then we can follow up then with what do we have, where are there gaps in information that is and then Chris can prioritize with his department heads where are the holes that we need to address, and because we've given direction that this is an important thing to us, then you can come to us and say, hey, listen, I need to do this.
Well, that's part of this
I need
debate
money
and
to do
discussion.
this.
It's like, is pristine roads the number one issue? Then that's where we devote our resources, making sure the buildings look nice for today, making sure the paint. I mean, those are the things that, by pushing this through you folks first, it gives the better policy setting, and then we figure out what to do.
So I'll just tweak, I might ask Steve to help, this language under capital priorities, and then I'll send it out and get some more feedback on it, and then we'll try to approve this, just to keep it moving, at our next meeting. John, did you wanna say something?
Yeah, point right. I want
No,
to go
fine.
back to your starting point on the 5%. I agree with everything you've said. The reason we put that in there is looking at the trends the last few years and sort of the projections in the existing plan, we actually could see a downslope. That we really haven't been keeping up with the growth of the budget and inflation generally. And that looked like it could get compounded if we weren't really cognizant of that. And it's separate because I suspect that number needs to be settled within the next 2 months. This process and your empirically based, thoughtfully generated policy standard is not gonna be done in the next 2 months.
Right.
So we just wanna make sure that as we go into this cycle, we're not going backwards and losing ground. And 5% was sort of a rough estimate, or estimate of what could accomplish that.
Okay, great. All right, anything else specifically on this right now? Okay. All right, we're running a little behind. Bummer for me. But next up
But
is
it's been great.
contract ratifications.
No, just one.
Just one.
The library, I'm still,
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, Don, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Or John's still staying
No,
with us.
John's sticking around.
John's sticking around.
Okay.
Soup for the
There's
long
anything else
haul.
you should say
Soup.
always interesting things, Jim, always. So, we've reached an agreement with the fire union after a very long conversation, a very well had conversation, including mediation. The first time we've gone through that. The last mediation session was 7 hours, but it was productive. We reached a settlement. So,
Great.
what's in front of you is that proposal. Base wage increase is 2%. There's some tweaks to the charts for paramedics. There's an increase in educational incentive. There's also some not more vacation time, but just tweaks in when people can start reaching plateaus. And tweak on sick leave, basically ensuring that people who are sick cannot work other jobs while they're sick. And also a cap on some reimbursements for personal wear, like sunglasses, things of that sort. So if people have prescription sunglasses, we'll replace them. But if we're getting Maui gyms, we're not buying you a pair of Maui gyms or Ray-Ban or whatever the trendy, expensive sunglasses are these days. So I know we had talked about this in the executive session. I'm recommending in public session to adopt the MOU. The fire union did ratify it now, so, which is a good sign considering after we ended up having to go to mediation, so it was a very productive round of mediation.
That's the one thing I did want to ask, that it was ratified by the union already.
The unified, the reason it's in front of you now is the union has now ratified it unanimously.
And it's essentially called a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, because these are the subjects.
Agreement. They drafted off.
It's a memorandum of agreement, yes. This is just the subject that we agreed to change. The rest of the contract stays the same.
Basic contract stays
Then we,
the
if
same.
you
So this is
folks
like an
approve-
addendum to a contract.
No, this is not gonna get incorporated into the contract. And it'll be an updated 3-year deal going forward, with these terms changed, and the ones that have not changed will stay.
Anybody like to make a motion?
Motion, we, firefighters, for 2 years, 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Minor point, do we approve or ratify here on this?
Don't know.
I think you're approving it.
It is crazy. You don't need to change it.
Those are very technical questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Stop
Yep,
that. It's
there
too
we
late.
go.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right.
All right,
Hopefully
give the
that
first
one
vote
holds
yes
us up,
then.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
There's
No
two more in the
contract.
pipeline, so.
Great.
All right.
We look
So
forward
good.
to those.
Um,
Town manager update.
So, as we talked about during the discussion on the warrant, the town hall materials are together. We're gonna get those together for distribution and talk about on the 23rd. We'll also present the first cut of the updated 5-10-year capital plan at the next meeting, the 23rd. The Cunningham Bridge, which is open, very exciting. It's the
Great.
soft opening. Will have to be closed again for up to 2 weeks while a do some final, pulling out of the cofferdams and all. That will start a week from Monday.
Fully closed, not one lane
No,
or?
they're gonna, no more than 2 weeks, but they're gonna wanna just fully close it so they can throw workers at it, get it done.
We, are the, how are we making the town aware of this?
When I get the final date, because they have to kick it back, which we should know in the next couple of days, it'll be on the Facebook page, it'll be on the police page, it'll be on the town's website, and so
You're talking about closing the bridge again for another 2 weeks?
up to 2 weeks.
Well, what needs to be done?
There's work that has to be done on the facing of the bridge, and they need to, I guess the state has made a trend, the state of the contract that it's faster just to get in there, close it, and then not have to just do one lane for weeks and weeks, to go in and just intensively work for a week or two, get it done,
Is that
They
the
wanna
state's
do that.
call, or is there a cooperative call?
Yeah, the state DOT does work with them on that, so the town is at the table too, it's a state.
You know,
It's gonna be a rough 2 weeks for us, you know.
Right, I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
You know,
it's like finding the
that's
Christmas
become a
present.
that's a commuter road at this point for people to get to Norwell, if they work in Norwell or Hanover. You know, it's really
I'm
tough.
scratching my head because I don't remember that as being part of the original schedule of work. And, you know, there's nothing about the change in railings that would affect the structure of the cofferdams. And I think where it's driving from is maybe the contractor looking to make a bonus by way of the schedule, which is very good, except that the town shouldn't have to sacrifice its mobility on the back of the contractor making a bonus.
I will speak again with Brian about this, but I think their goal is to get it done as fast as
Well,
possible.
I just wanna emphasize without making too much of it, though, that I think we should recognize, or somebody needs to recognize, because we're in touch with people. People would be very upset in this town if this goes for 2 weeks, so. We should think about that. I don't know what can be done about it, but I do think that this would be totally unexpected in
Yeah, well,
the
I
town,
mean,
and
I don't
if
think
it-
this is something that, did any of you guys hear of this?
No,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it was noticed when this was open, and I put this out publicly to everybody.
It was a soft opening.
Yeah,
So I
and
thought
that
that
there
the
would be
shrubbery-
potential
That there would
closures
be,
of
right.
lanes.
Closures of lanes, not
Right.
2 lanes at the same time.
And that they might have to take the bridge out of service entirely for a period of time to remove some, if they have to bring a crane in to pull some stuff out.
I just don't think that's not at all generally known, and that's gonna take some, actually, we need to think about how we're gonna
Do
explain
we
that
still
if we
have,
do it.
do we still have our
Yes.
ombudsman guy?
We
Yeah,
certainly
so I
do.
think it's worth just,
Is there a way to, the signs that are up that says,
Communicating.
there's a,
Yeah, well,
is there a way to say, it's gonna be
every-
closed, and just put it up,
Every bit of notice in advance we put out.
advance notice saying there'll be closures date to date?
When will it be roughly, what period of time again? If we did this?
Potentially in a week or a week to 2 weeks.
Yeah, if it,
Couldn't we just put 2 policemen, one-on-one, beside one
I
another?
will ask all these questions and follow up. On another road.
They need to stop it, the police can stop it, and
Let me follow up and see what we can. On a
Obviously-
positive note on
obviously,
roads. No,
Yeah.
go ahead. Is it
You're
Cedar
gonna have,
Acres
yes.
oh,
is
that was my
scheduled
question.
to be paved hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
Great,
We've just had kickbacks, our contractor keeps pushing back to the date.
right.
What'll be paved again?
Cedar Acres.
Remember that place?
Yeah.
I have not formally, this is an informal announcement to folks who are watching on Cedar Acres, so, we should have a firm date in the next couple of days. So that's,
But it's imminent.
it's imminent, in the next couple of weeks, unless
Great
Taylor
news.
Edwards pulls a fast one there, but it's gotta get done.
Another project off our list.
Yes, that's a very, very, very big check, so, small check, big check.
Right, right.
Small project big check, so, and, as I mentioned, in my update on Friday, there were 3 grants in town, one on soft body armor through the police department, and 2, through the community compact program that town's been part of for 3 years. One to do a public portal, as part of this electronic data management to facilitate public information requests. Another to put a down payment onto the IT updated master plan, so both those are $40,000.
That's great.
Nice grants. And we have a couple of others pending, and I believe Pete said we got good news today on Good Streets, so we expected we're gonna get that, but that's been green lighted, and that fund is now in place, so it's all come on board to start building that process. That program then, a proposed policy will come from the selectmen in the next couple of months. That's coming up
Terrific.
next time.
I got a call from the lieutenant governor wanting to come and do some presentation on the community compact.
Oh, great.
He's an electioneer, so
Yes,
I called back and just
Sure, let us know.
gave them all the contact information here, so.
Great. The bridge opening is, the official ribbon cutting of that is still pleasant.
Yeah.
It'd be excellent if we could do the official ribbon cutting when we close it down.
You're right, I know, I was gonna
So-
say,
Yeah, let's-
I was gonna say that.
Beat comes down.
Maybe that's one of the
I'll
reasons.
be-
I'm
We
like,
could have citizens coming in by boat.
Beechwood
Goodness.
wants a ribbon cutting for the Beechwood.
Yeah, they do.
Bridge, too.
Yeah, we need to remove a stump up there to finish some regrading
Right.
work, and unfortunately, with the rains, the well levels got a little too high to get that done.
Can we do something though to
We
celebrate
will.
that completion and,
Yeah.
I've been hearing from several people that they feel a bit, actually a bit
Yeah.
slighted the fact that we would be celebrating Cunningham and not celebrating.
Well,
We should
to be
Beechwood.
clear on that, as I said to one of the residents, the state was planning the ribbon
Right,
cutting.
it's not the town.
It's not the town, so it wasn't like the town was slighting them, it was,
Let's-
but
but-
we
but
should
They're
celebrate.
they're not gonna know the
They
distinction.
want a
Yeah,
party,
we're-
we'll throw one.
We're happy to celebrate. There is a little bit of regrading work that has to get done.
Yeah.
Just to,
But you will set that up then.
once we have a green light, we will do something.
Okay.
Because that was actually, it's a project 150 years in the making.
Right,
To serve
all the
summer
more to
condition.
celebrate.
That's a roll.
All right, selectmen update. Steve, do you have a Red Sox score?
4-0 Sox, bottom of the fifth.
Ooh.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's, Sabathi's already been knocked out.
Ooh.
And
Is
Porcella's
Porcella's still
only got,
pitching?
Porcella's only at the 46 pitches.
Life
You
is
can
good.
multitask. Good work. Anything else?
No, I actually have, I have nothing at the moment. I just reiterate, since this is the one time for the board of public, if we can find a resolution to keep a lane open on Cunningham Bridge, that would surely be a welcome outcome.
Even if it were 3 weeks.
Even if for three
Right.
weeks, and that's, given that we look like we're heading for some budget excess, even if the town had to pick up the cost of duty officers during the time.
See what I can find.
So, my friend Jay Nothenagel has to walk from Avalon to Stop and Shop to do his job, and there are a whole bunch of other people that come down off of Avalon and have to walk along the road, and the state's not trimming back all the bush and the brush. Can we just send somebody out there to clean it off on the good sports side? I've had like 3 or 4 people buzz me about that.
Are you talking about between there and the gas station?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, there's a, between where the Good Sport Plaza is and the water station, there's actually a guardrail there.
So they have to
And
walk on the other side.
They walk on the other side of it, but mostly it's the shrubbery just gets so overgrown.
I believe that's private property, and I believe the person that owns that would be very receptive to a phone call, Chris, which I'll tell you about.
Yes, I know who the person is. It actually, the state owns from the line, like
In.
6 feet in,
Okay,
so it is
alright.
state, but that person would be, I'm sure, happy to.
Right, let's talk about it afterwards.
Yep.
All right.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
The only thing that I wanna bring up is, just because I think all of us have had a lot of phone calls and emails, is the Smith Place development, and if possible, we could have a conversation about it at our next meeting, just to look at some of the towns, whether we, assets, or, that's the plea, is where's the town in these conversations, given the fact that, we own the culvert and things like that. So I think some of us are planning to go to the planning board meeting just to kind of get up to speed on some of the conversations and the project, and, but at the next meeting, I would like to just have a little update on that.
So I get Pete to come in and give something.
People are really motivated.
On fire.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that there are elements of it within the planning construct that make absolute sense, and there are other pieces of it whereby newer folks who are living in those areas, and even people who've lived there for a long time, are unaware of what the village zoning district overlay allows. And now having encountered are looking for changes in places that don't have any authority to change it. Pointing to your selectmen and say, change the zoning laws,
Right,
is not gonna
right,
work.
right. And I've had
You've
many
got-
of those conversations.
Yes, you've got an entire board that,
Are
whose job it
elected.
is to, and are elected to review, make recommendations, et cetera, with respect to the zoning laws, and we do need to have a coherent conversation. We may be called upon to voice our opinion, but ultimately, what's allowable there is allowable under the law. And and that goes for any.
Well, that's not clear yet. I'd be careful about that statement. It still needs to be.
What I'm driving at is anything that would get approved there and could be constructed there could only be done if in fact it were within the guiding law.
Correct.
true.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
That's what I'm driving.
Yep.
And the guiding law also covers things like stormwater and wetlands and so forth. And so that's, but likewise, if it allows a building height of 35 feet, it allows a building height of 35 feet. And, no matter how you cut it, that's allowable. So,
Absolutely, and that's.
under that law.
That's my,
Want to change it, we can change it.
right,
But that takes an act of town meeting.
that's been my posture, but to the extent that there is town, either land or assets that are being impacted,
Then we
it's
should-
worth us understanding what's going on.
We should have a clear understanding of that.
Correct.
Because anything that happens to that culvert will make a horrific mess upstream and potentially downstream.
So Diana and I talked a little bit about this, and, the master plan and all the plans we're doing, I think creates the framework for us to have an overall discussion about zoning and bylaws and how we might wanna update it. None of us, very interestingly, none of us raised zoning and changes to zoning as an issue, but Diane correctly pointed out, most of it's being captured in the master plan, but, we may wanna really have a deep dive on how we're gonna look at this, and probably sooner rather than later.
I mean, I
I'm
didn't.
gonna go to Smith Place tomorrow night, cause
Yep.
I wanna understand
Understand,
the issue.
yeah. And I think that's what Jack and I were talking about was when we did our goals and objectives, like the fact that zoning change or bylaw review, while we all think it's important, didn't rise to the top. I think it's because probably a lot of us said, well, master plan will be making recommendations, so that is buried kind of in there, and so we'll see where it all goes.
What's the next step, right?
Yep.
Is implementation.
Yep.
Along that line, I wanted to bring up stuff, there's a James Lane development there. It just seemed to me, because I had gone to some of those hearings there, and when this was originally presented, it seemed to be much more modest than what this thing has continued to grow and to become. Is anybody, I don't quite understand what's going on there, or I don't know how much of a role we play there or not, but it just seems to me, I distinctly remember going there, seeing a more modest proposal, and that whole development is continuing to grow almost out of this, and it just, to me, it looks fairly somewhat inappropriate for that whole section. How does that occur? Do we have any role there, or did that? I don't remember that ever getting approved. That kind of growth.
So let me just talk about how the state does it, how Boston does it. In Boston, you go ahead and you go to in front of all these committees, they stamp your plans, you apply for a building permit, you get the building permit, you build the building, you get an inspection, but you have to resubmit all your plans to the building department and have them review, and your as-bills have to be exactly the same as the stuff that was approved.
It doesn't look like that's the case.
No,
here.
and I don't know if we have that closed loop system yet.
Well, if that's the case, then we have something that from my own, and again, I don't have the haven't looked up all the details, but it looks almost twice the size what I ever saw it being discussed.
So
I mean, I can't believe that our regulatory or our zoning would ever allow, the planning board to approve 9 or 12 units, and all of a sudden there's 22. I mean,
There are
whatever
not
it
22
is.
units.
Whatever it is. Okay.
I mean, to be clear,
Chris Andrew, yeah.
My history on this is somewhat limited, but one of the challenges with that is that there was an older approval that goes back many years, and because of the recession, the state adopted these permit extension laws. So what happened is that there was an older approval that the state grandfathered for many years, which normally is not the case. The came out of the recession, and they leveraged that with the planning law to get what they had. So they in some case, they kind of deferred back to some of that. Now, that may not have been approved today, but it was approved 10 years ago, whenever the thing got initially approved. If you recall, there was a challenge because they were being built to the right size, but the basements weren't supposed to be finished.
Right.
The attics
Or
were
the attics,
supposed to be
yeah.
finished. So they did go back and they fought over that, and they were supposed to be unfinished. Now, is it possible that new owners will introduce the work on there? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's the challenge of how that was developed. That whole village bylaw was designed, as I understand it, to make downtown, to kind of cluster around the railroad and the downtown.
Bring people downtown.
To bring people downtown to make a vibrant live-work community.
And it has worked.
And it has worked. Some of the challenge is that the parking lot is also allowed to be used to some extent to meet parking requirements, and that's all well and good when there was nothing there. But now that it's pretty well built out, or I should say built out, because there's at least two other proposals that take up this land that's owned by the Lions. 4 years ago, those were most of the condos that went away. And there's the property Sawyer, Captain Sawyer House, that has an empty parking lot behind it that potentially be used.
Well,
That's where
are they
we
using
can
the
get
town
involved.
parking lot as
The village-
spaces to meet the private developers' development?
Not for the James Lane case, but yes, that is allowed to be used. That was the purpose of the bylaw, was to allow that,
So,
to allow denser development.
But having said that, and this comes up with Diane's original comment with respect to, how are the town's resources impacted by using two Smith places. The adjacency to the town parking lot, the smaller lot, is one thing. The size of the development is one resident brought forward in one of her writings in the year. It's not logical to think that, I can't remember the revised proposal, is it 18 units?
I don't know.
17 units. It's not logical to think that 17 units would be restricted to 17 cars. And, and frankly, you guys know how much I love to talk about parking in this town. We are stressed, and I think if if any of us were to go into the village during the day, you'd see it with your own eyes. I mean, there is, just throw an event on top of that, and you can't find a place to park. So if all of a sudden you've got 17 new units at Smith Place, but only 17 parking spaces, and they're two-bedroom units, so it's likely that you're going to find, a couple or roommates or whatever it might be occupying it. The overflow is going to go somewhere. I'm not even going to talk about traffic. Right? That's a whole other issue, which the residents, I think, have every right to ask questions about. But I am going to talk about parking because we committed to the town businesses, the businesses in the village, that we would reserve that lot for them. So what happens if suddenly they can't park it anymore?
Well, if the town decides to reserve that for emergency, the town will reserve that for emergency.
No, my point is that's all gonna flow somewhere. The infrastructure is stressed and it has to be figured into the conversation.
I think one of the challenges, which I assume, I shouldn't say I can't do this, I presume the master plan is looking at to some extent, and if not, the post-master plan is that tremendously successful village business district. Does it need to be tweaks, because the law was done, 10 years ago. And maybe, you don't want it to become a victim of its own success, because you're going, my prior town did something very similar on the town dock. Our town dock was much bigger, and it was to a large extent a big parking lot that was allowed to be used by immediate businesses, which again, at night was fine. You rotated the bit, but it became a very large development was trying to leverage it, and that was not really what it was meant for, but technically it would have fit, and it became very controversial.
So, I just wanna wrap this up because we are in selectmen comment period, and I definitely we'll put this on the next agenda, just
Well,
to have a general
I'm gonna have
conversation
Pete
about
come
this.
in and talk.
And I'd love to have Pete come in, so, sorry.
I had three things with them.
Good news.
Was the culvert, which is two things. I spoke to Representative Mosquito. There's a fair amount of revenue excess, even in the first quarter, and there is potential for chapter 90 monies in addition as a supplemental bill, probably after the election, for additional chapter 90 money, which is roadway and resurfacing, and, could be a fair amount. There's also, electric charging proposal being put by the state, relative charging, in towns. So those are the two things I've checked on.
Alright, Kevin, any updates?
No, I'm all set.
Alright, we are all set. I have no minutes, from September 18th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, no topics reasonably anticipated, so I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're done, thanks.
Yep.
4 to 1 side.